Thinking Tackle Podcast.
Yeah, he'd done those clear water videos, didn't he, on the Trent and stuff? And it was like this match angler dressed in
red, yeah.
In red, it's like
in red,
that don't make sense, does it? But he was pretty good at it, wasn't he?
He stood out, didn't he?
Yeah.
No, when I first met him, he was very good at sort of, pepping you up, seeing the best in you, giving you the confidence straight away. I'll never forget it at the NEC. He was quite clever actually, as a little thing for your viewers out there that want to become the sponsored angler. This happened to me very early on. I realised when I first started writing in the magazines who I wanted to be sponsored by, and Shimano was one of them, because I'd had the old Triton C-spin reels and a bit of their kit. I really liked Shimano. So what I done was I played a funny game, is I went and bought more of their kit and then got it into my articles, and then went onto their stand at the NEC and showed them my portfolio of stuff.
Did you?
Yeah, and they just took me on straight away.
Did
I was
they?
actually a paid consultant straight away with Shimano, and then I ended up in all their packaging all over Europe and in their catalogue within weeks. But that's a really, really good thing, that a lot of these young lads or people that want to be sponsored, they think that if they can go out and catch fish and do their thing, and then phone these companies up and try and blag their way in almost. A great way of doing it is, if you really want to be with that company, buy that company's products, put it on your Instagram page, put it in your stories, tag them in, make it look like you're already sponsored by them because you believe in that brand and you want to be part of it. And
how old were you when you did that?
27,
right.
26, 27, yeah.
That's a brilliant bit of advice.
Yeah,
actually.
it's nice.
It'd be something that a lot of people probably wouldn't even thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another really, really good piece of advice that was given to me when I first started at Carp Talk was take photographs, and which would be now videos of everything. Start building your library now, That if you are on something like this, you get invited onto a nice podcast or something, and you're talking about, I don't know, say you were sitting there and the swan went through your lines and you had a big problem, that you've actually got a shot of a swan on a lake moving through to go with the context of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
so when you're writing bits, for
like as you said the other day, you've got audio, you've got visual stuff, you've got it all going. As you said, it's like three-dimensional, isn't it? There's reality, there's pictures, and what was the other one?
What, digital reality?
Yeah, so you've got digital reality.
Yeah.
And then you've got photographic, still reality.
Yeah.
So you've got like three.
I think my passion at the minute is trying to capture fish jumping out of the water, even seeing a fish jump out of the water.
Have you ever got that?
Yeah, I've got loads jumping on video, yeah.
Right.
And that's a great library thing then, so that when you're editing, you can bring that in, You're sitting there by the rods, all of a sudden the fish jumps, cut away to the rods, get a screamer. It's great content. But that's the sort of thing that I think anybody that's really wants to get involved in this, just start building your library. I've actually got a huge volume. Toby would probably know the sort of like what we're talking about into terabytes. I think I've got 20 terabytes of information at home.
Is that a lot, is it?
Yeah. That's a ridiculous amount of space.
So the last 15 years of all digital photography and all the video projects I've got on drive. So
how many hard drives is that across? There's got to be a fair few.
Yeah, I've got about 8, I think.
Yeah, that's
like
ridiculous.
big drives.
What, like our hard drive?
Oh, we've got a 2 terabyte over here.
Yeah, I've got 2s and I've got a 4 as well.
Wow.
4's being eaten up at the minute. But I'm creating that, and I've got that build up of stuff, Then at the minute I've been doing little Instagram reels with like loads of little screaming runs and bits and bobs that I've built up over the years, and you can make a 30-second clip. And some of them videos I've been putting on, I've been having like 160, 180,000 views, just out of old content. But it's really really nice. I really enjoy it. It's good fun.
It's self promotion and stuff. Has that always been important to you then, to put yourself out there as much as you can?
Played a clever game at the beginning as well, is that I created my own content. So what we used to have with Angling Times, Improve Your Course Fishing, magazines like that, what they'd have is they'd have a staff writer, a photographer, and then the angler. So it'd take 3 people to create an article, which is quite an expensive process. So what I realised straight away, I had remotes for my cameras, and because I could write, after going to university, I could write a 3,000 word article. It was very similar to an essay that I've been writing for years. So yeah, creating my own photography, writing my own stuff, and then getting that to the magazine. So you're making the whole process really cheap for them, and also I'm getting paid for it. But then I have the content. So when I started going to the fishing shows in Europe, to Zwolle, Carp, Italy, things like that, I was meeting the magazines there, and I already had the articles. I didn't have to do any work, So had a really good one with a magazine in Italy called Carp. So I think they were every other month. So probably went on for about 3 years. They were taking my articles from me, and they never paid me. They agreed like €150. And I went to one of the shows, and the company had just been bought by another person, and they come over to the stand and they said, we want to settle all debts that the company had previously had, and that there's like whatever it was, like 3,000 something euros in cash in an envelope, and I just kind of like walked out of the show. And it was really cool. This cash that I had, it had stayed in my house for like years, because I love travelling, going backwards and forwards to France, fishing and things like that. It was really nice. I could just I'll take brilliant. €200 out of there for this trip.
Handy,
yeah, it was really, really handy. But it's really nice when things come back that I'd done all of that work. It was great publicity for the companies that I work with and that anyway. So, and to be fair, it wasn't articles that I was writing. It was just stuff that I had in libraries and stuff.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I can see from the plethora of different bits and pieces you've brought with you here. you come organised. Have you got a body shaver in there anywhere? Pete? Do you like shaving your body?
I do shave my body. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. Right. I do. As a physical exercise now, I do a lot of swimming. Yeah. So I do like to sort of even just keep myself in shape and keep myself
aerodynamic.
Yeah.
Do you think, you can move faster. Well, me too as well with exercise. I think I think a good shave up every now and again, and it makes you feel cleaner and stuff.
Definitely.
Definitely. What about when you come away from like a big session on the bank or something like that? I spoke to a few people. Obviously, I haven't done it myself, but a few people come back. They're like, cut all their nails, have a nice shave and stuff like that. Yeah, you got to come back and be fresh, because I imagine it's a nice feeling getting in a hot bath or something. Right up.
Yeah. Even shaving everything down there,
it's got to go all the way down, doesn't it?
Well, you just get a bit carried away with it, don't you? As well, once you start doing like last week, I started on the arms.
Yeah.
We had this. We've got these new body shavers.
Okay.
Manscaped Tobe, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Simon put his one through the paces.
Have you done everything? Have you?
I might as well do the whole lot, ain't you? Does it work on the whole body? I think it's come out all right. Yeah. What about you then?
Yeah, I'll shave everything. Yeah.
Do you think our viewers and listeners are thinking, what the hell are they talking about here?
maybe they're younger, some of them, and they don't realise. No, but even for myself, my own sort of like, personally, it's for a hygienic perspective. Do you get what I mean? That's I just feel better within myself. I feel cleaner. Yeah. Feel fresher. Yeah. Maybe it's even the way my hair grows quite straight, so even my hair underneath my armpits, if I left it growing forever, I think it'd be down by my elbow. Do you get what I mean? Going swimming, turning up like that. Yeah. It's a funny one with the swimming, because it's a really strange story, but it's good. I swim with the old ladies when the swimming pools are open. That's what I do. Yeah. And the reason that I do that is because I can't stand being in gyms, because of the self-expression and sexual tension that you get in gyms. Either a guy's like pounding weights like look at me, or there's a girl with ponytail, do you get what I mean, with the gym kit up the backside sort of thing, running and like swishing a ponytail. I can't be dealing with it, like the attention seeking, people stand there. It's
awful. When you catch somebody, what's my favourite one? Sorry to jump in.
No, you're right.
When you see somebody in the gym not lifting weights, they're just doing a nice selfie in front of the weight.
Yeah.
And then they move to a different one, they finish the exercise. And I think that's brilliant.
I think I get caught up in it as well. So if I'm on a running machine, they start going faster, and I get caught up in this thing like, I'm going to beat. And I come out of there every time, and I just think I've not got what I wanted out of it. Whereas when I'm in the pool with these old ladies going up and down, I have to be careful not to splash their blue rinse.
Right, of course, obviously.
And I have been told off a couple of times. I can just do my own thing then. So I come out of the swimming pool feeling like I've got what I've gone there for. Where I'm just relaxed. I've done my exercise, and it's really, really beneficial for me. I have a few problems with my back and stuff like that, so I've been able to stretch out in the pool, and that is really good. I'm coming to an age now where I need to look after myself.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I don't know what that's got to do with shaving our bodies, but I think it was a nice little anecdote anyway there, Pete, isn't it? Yeah. No, we've been sponsored.
Yes.
Podcast. So we've sold out Tobe a little bit, haven't we, on this? We've, and before they start complaining, pull your necks in a little bit. We've it's an accolade. Manscaped have decided to sponsor us, and so we're promoting their products.
But we are giving a little bit back to everyone listening as well, aren't we? Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, that's it.
Have I got to do an instructional here?
Yeah, so
we should have given him the razor in the first place, because Pete looked quite up for this.
Today's how-to tutorial.
Yeah, well, we can always learn, can't we?
All these carp anglers out there thinking this is really manly, isn't it? Talking about shaving body hair.
Yeah, I know, but I think we all do it a little bit as well. Yeah. So, but it's a little bit taboo, maybe. But we got a promotional code.
Yeah, that's it. If anybody is interested, they can get 20% off and free delivery with code Korda at checkout at manscaped.com.
Free delivery as well.
Sounds
good. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully take advantage of that.
I'm going to have a look when I get home.
Are you?
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I've got a razor over there, actually. I'll show you later anyway. So
I wouldn't borrow it.
No, it's had a bit of use. It's a good bit. They do other stuff as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do everything. They even do ball deodorant to ball aftershave. Nose trimmers, the lot. Trimmers. The ball deodorant, that's nice. Like after a workout, you still come out smelling fresh.
Yeah.
You notice when you get older as well, you start having to use like the old nasal razors as well.
Don't know what you mean.
Oh really? I've been using that as well. That's been handy as well. Yeah. So get on that anyway. And no, it's nice that people want to sponsor the podcast.
No, I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Joe Rogan podcast and the Think and Tackle podcast. It seems it's got a nice little ring to it, really.
We're in the same leagues now.
Well, we are.
And you know that you'd be coming in here fresh and trim. Anyone that's coming in, seeing you.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they're not
hygienically ready.
Anyway, Pete Castle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
I think this is going to be a slightly different show for some reason.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, I think we're going to go through. It's going to be a little bit more. Unusual, intellectual maybe as well.
Yeah, and push it at points. I hope I don't lose anyone. I get a little bit crazy in my head and that.
Well, you said as well, don't let me go too dark. What do you mean by going dark?
Well, just just going too far in, I think, and alienating people in the conversation. You know? When I'm out drinking, some people get silly and joke about and stuff like that. I can get quite serious when I've had a beer. Start getting all philosophical and putting the world.
Do you find it's easier to talk seriously or lightheartedly?
A bit of both.
Do you?
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I think when you start talking a little bit heavier and that, I find when you start going a bit deeper into people's heads, what they believe, it's not always 100% factual what I'm talking about. Sometimes a few scientific terms, but maybe it's my beliefs and different to yours,
Yeah, they are, but no, I like going deeper as well. I just find it more comfortable.
Yeah.
But anyway, before we start the show properly, Pete, we always ask our guests for a gift, right? And I think...
Okay. Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to pass this.
Pete's put a lot of effort into this.
One second.
So we're looking forward. I've got no idea what we're going to...
Check that out.
So we need to open this. Okay. Any ideas, Tobe?
I haven't got a clue, mate.
Got a picture here. Bloody hell.
Wow.
It's not just any picture.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, he likes that.
Yeah. We like...
I did say to Simon I wanted to do something handmade. When you've opened it, I'll explain there's a little bit of a story behind this.
This is an illustration we got. We need to... Do you know what? I've got tennis elbow at the moment. Hitting golf balls.
Okay.
Just overdoing it, and I've got absolutely no strength in my
tearing that off like it's Christmas morning.
I've got to. We would be here all day.
No, it's okay.
Wow. Let's have a look. So turn it around and hold it in front of you.
Look at that.
A little bit more that way.
This way.
Yeah, lovely. Towards your camera.
Yeah. How's that?
Yeah, perfect.
Did you draw this?
I drew that when I was a teenager.
Hey, that's
Did
incredible.
you really?
Yeah, it's like 30 years old. Right, there's a bit of a weird story behind, not weird, but an exciting story behind it, really. When I left school and that, for some reason I started
Thank
to
you
get
very
into,
much before you start.
Yeah, that's
more than
brilliant,
welcome.
mate. Thank you.
Wow.
Just to say as well, the guys from First Light Framing put that together for me. It's all
nice.
handmade frame and everything.
Yeah, that does. That actually
First Light Framing, thank you. Yeah,
they went to town
frame.
for that. So thank you very much to Ollie and Dan for sorting that out so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, what I've always been interested in creative things and that, but I suddenly got it into my head, as I have done with other things, that I wanted to learn how to draw, because at school and that I could draw as normal as any other child, but I suddenly thought, right, I want to understand how to draw properly, so I taught myself basically, and read a few books on it as well, or looked at the different structure of it, and the more that I understood about it, the better I got. So that picture is actually the front of a carp world, with Martin Locke holding a fish. I think it's a big Kent mirror.
Right.
A very old carp world. So I drew that, and if you look at it, it's got a slightly different offset angle.
Yeah,
it's
right.
A bit more coming at you, So.
What carp world was that? Can you remember?
God, I can't remember. It would have been sort of mid-90s, maybe a bit earlier,
Has Martin seen this picture?
Well, that is actually a print. He has got the original.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So what happened was, when I first started writing for the magazines, I got asked to do the Five Lakes show, like Rigs and Bait Corner or whatever it was, and I think it was probably like 2002, 2003, something like that. And he was on the listings for doing something else there, so I knew he was going to be there, so I took it to the show, and just went over and saw him and just said, "Oh, I don't know if you recognise this fish," and he instantly recognised it, And I said, "Yeah, I'd done that when I was a teenager, and you can have the original," He was really made up. So
wow,
it was pretty cool. So yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that. That is, that's a bit sentimental. That is, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got a nice selection of pictures now.
We're gonna start getting these hung up already, I reckon.
But no,
that's going to be the centerpiece.
I'm a little bit protective of stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
kind of like there's a bit of me there. If that makes any sense. It's
yeah.
Kind of,
although it's a fish from a picture, there's your identity within the lines and the structure of that.
Well,
picture.
even the sort of like the the tools that's drawn with a black biro. It's quite a quite a statement to sort of draw with stuff like that. If that makes any sense.
But to be fair, we've said it on previous shows again, but Dan's really quite excited to have these all put up in a display in reception where you would have seen earlier. So he wants like a be like an exhibit.
Yes.
Of all the gifts that we have in here. So yeah, that'd make a lovely addition.
Yeah, thank you.
So I mean, so you're quite a talented artist as well. Are you drawing a lot of stuff?
No, I've not drawn for about 25 years.
Really?
We've got an exclusive.
Yeah. What it is that it's one of them things that I know that I can draw now. I've got no tattoos on my body for that reason. Is because most of the time when I walk into a tattooist place or see people's tattoos, I know that I could do it better. So it's kind of like that's why I've got none on my body.
Yeah.
Although actually tattooing now has become a real art form.
Yeah.
When I was I worked in a hotel once, and there was a girl in there. She was quite young actually. She was only about 16, 17, and she was like only passing through summer thing as she was being a student and that. And we was having this conversation. She pulled her top up on her back and said, I've got a tattoo when I was in America, and the guy that done John Bon Jovi's or something done this, and it was like a rising sun coming from her back, and it was a work of art. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't, and I realised then, because at the time when I was drawing that sort of stuff there, it was like at Clacton Pier you could get an anchor kind of thing, I was at Clacton, that kind of stuff. So yeah, one of my older brothers has got tattoos as well. And
you got tattoos, Toby?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've got one, half an arm.
Yeah. My brother's got stuff like that kind of stuff, that tribal thing. I quite like some of it, but it's just again, it's that.
I couldn't believe when before I got my first one. First thing somebody told me is you'd be surprised how addictive they are.
Yes.
And that's really true. I got the first one and was going to stop. And then I got a second one, and then I'm planning more and more and more.
Yeah.
Even though it's hours of pain.
Yes, yeah, but it's that
do you feel like you're mapping your life story through those tattoos as well?
I mean, personally, like everybody's different. I started with one that had a bit of meaning, and then after that, my mother would be appalled to hear. I just walked into the shop for my second one and went, you pick something.
Yeah.
And that was it. And he said, oh, that'll fit nice in there. I said, yeah, go for it.
Right.
You know.
It's part of your identity, isn't it? And what makes you then. An example of your talking then that I was thinking, I don't even know this guy. When I'm driving home of an evening, there's a lad that was walking his dog. Like I said, don't know him, and he's just quite a normal blonde-haired guy, and he's got a bit of a tattoo creeping up his neck. So that's sort of very identifiable to me that's him, you know. Do you get what I mean? That's all as how I know him. I not even really looked at the dog. It's just the way it's creeping up. It's not high on his neck, but you can definitely see there's a tattoo poking out there, you know.
I think for me it would... maybe I'm uncertain about where I'm going in life, and at times, and you know, if I'm worried I'm going to put a tattoo on, you know, I'm going to choose a tattoo that I think suits my mood and where I am at that moment in time. But I'm probably worried that I might change my opinion, and it's like left on there. But it's an idea. I remember John Bon Jovi actually say about him. He's just got that little Superman tattoo, hasn't he, on his arm? And it's like it's pretty naff really, isn't it? But it's like, you know, it's very identifiable, isn't it? Yeah. Do you think do you think you just look at things a lot differently to other people as well? You talked about you needed to learn how to draw, that you needed to understand that how to draw and create your own take on it. And with photography and stuff like this.
Yeah. I think going back to the drawing thing just really quickly, and it was a caption at the introduction to a book, it was to draw what you see and not what you think you see. And it's quite an interesting concept because people do that all the time. They try to draw what they think they see and not what they're actually looking at. And an example would be, if I was drawing you now as a portrait, a very common thing for people to do is to draw eyelashes in. So all of a sudden your picture becomes very feminine, because I'm drawing eyelashes in, but from the distance that I'm drawing you at, I can't see your eyelashes. All is what eyelashes are is a black line across the top of your eyes.
Okay, so what do you see now then? Where would you start?
Well, I would draw your eyelashes as a black line across the top of your eye, the whole thing. There's not individual eyelashes, you know. So that is drawing what I'm seeing and not what I think I'm seeing.
And that stands out in that picture as well, doesn't it? They're quite distinctive, bold lines on a picture like that as well. Yeah,
because you can see it. I can see them lines, so I'm confident to go for that. I can see the shadow, you know. Yeah. If I'm looking at things around in this room now, I can not only see that light over there, I can see the shadow from the light, and it's as important to draw that shadow in as it is the light, and that's what makes the drawing, not the light itself, you know. It's the shadow that's being cast by the other things, because it gives you perspective and everything. So yeah, once I'd understood that and I learned that, and that has had an impact on my photography now, you know. I understand light. There was a picture in here when I first come in, and I was like, I don't really like that shot. It crucified you.
Yeah, we won't say what picture it was, but it was you see the water lines a little bit.
Yeah, because water's level. It's a pet hate of mine. And
why are you laughing, Ted?
I'm laughing because now it's been pointed out. I can't unsee it.
That's what I mean. I said that to you as well, didn't I?
And it's just, it
makes me feel a bit dizzy.
So all of you people out there on Instagram and doing everything, you can adjust this on Instagram as well, or in your little edit thing. Water is level. So if the photograph is on the wonk, that it looks like your picture is going down a waterfall or something.
It's flowing downhill.
And even more so with that one where there's boats on it and they're all running downhill.
Don't say too much. Yeah.
So water is level. So if you level your shot up, but that creates perspective. If you want to get, you know, people talk about carp fishing, that they do these little tweaks and it gives them extra percentages and this, that, and the other. Well, in your photography, if you want your Instagram page and things like that to work, then you've got to look at your photograph. If you're putting a load of shots on there where water isn't level, then it stands out. You know, it looks awkward. You know?
You've got a big Instagram following as well, haven't you? Yeah,
it's become really popular. It's only been running a couple of years,
but that surprises me with you then, because you were saying, you know, with the Shimano stuff and you know, getting in there with you know, promoting yourself there. Did you not think it took a long time for you to get onto Instagram?
Yeah, but I've been doing it for other companies.
Right.
So like the Free Spirit page, have built up to however many thousands.
So we're looking at your stuff on the screen.
I've had to throw it up because I follow you on Instagram, Pete, and you do a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Every aspect, from your photography, even some of your videos, mate, they look brilliant.
Yeah, I enjoy it, and I've been doing it, you know, with various companies over the years and building it up. And the problem that become for me, although I enjoyed doing that for those companies, was if things changed and my circumstances changed.
I've seen that picture of the carp porpoising out the water.
Should we
I've
have a
seen
little
that
watch?
pitch. No, that was you. That's gone around. How many views has that got? I've got 147. Look at that. Yeah, yeah. I've seen that recently. Yeah. How long did it take to get a shot like that?
See where it's bubbling and that there,
Yeah.
like, you know, the fish are giving it away with it in a roll
right.
and that, you know. A lot of this
That's
stuff.
wicked, that.
Yeah,
A
it's
lot of
really
this
good, isn't it? Yeah.
Stuff is just experience, isn't it? A lot of people message me and say, "How do you capture that then?" But you know, I know, you know, I'm quite an experienced carp angler.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know what's going on, and being able to read the water and have watercraft, and
Yeah.
but also not being afraid, you know, that some of the bits that I bought here, my camera equipment here, just a little camcorder, and probably get about 4 hours life with a big battery. Not being afraid to just put the camcorder on and just let it run. So something might not show for an hour, but then all of a sudden the bit that you're wanting to capture, you know.
You do that very often, do you? Do you
See,
just,
some of these shots on here are original black and whites, you know. I used to love playing around with black and white film, and yeah, that's black and original, and I've not changed that, you know.
Yeah, that's a nice shot. Yeah, but there's a nice variation in like content in different light as well.
Yeah.
You find that's important with Instagram as well, that you know to try and give
Sorry,
people
mix it up.
That's
variety.
a brilliant shot. Look at that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I like that.
in a way, it's like a nothing shot in the for me, and like they were actually young ducklings, probably teenagers, you know.
Yeah.
So they're being a bit mischievous anyway, you know. But they've been hanging around all morning, so it's kind of like as the sun come up. But it's the low level. I had a flip round screen on that camera, which was quite early on. It's an old Canon G5 camera, which is much of a cult camera.
Right.
Lee Jackson had one. Danny
Yeah.
Fairbrass had one. They were proper into their G5s.
Yeah.
And I've still got mine. So yeah, being able to flip that screen round and getting a low angle. But
Yeah.
again, that shot wouldn't look right if the water wasn't level. Do you get what I mean?
Of course, yeah. Well, now you've pointed it out, Pete. Yeah, before I've never been much of a photographer, and yeah, we've talked about this Instagram stuff before. For me, it's I'm not sure if I'm really ready to sort of want to share my whole life with people, but
Yeah.
it's but on the other hand as well, like I say, nowadays it's you've got that portfolio of what's going on in your life to be able to. I was talking to a friend once. I'm with some agencies, and he said, if I'm booking anyone from your agency, he said, if I don't see a lot of social media stuff, I'm not even
Yeah.
I'm not going to give anybody any work.
No.
It's that important now.
Yeah. It's a big plug-in for I spend a lot of time on it because I still work. I'm not only doing my own. I do all the stuff for the World Carp Classic, World Predator Classic, World Street Fishing, Angling Super Cup, and there's a new one coming out called Sea Angling Classic in July.
Right. Okay. So this stuff. So when these events go on, and these are global events that go on around the world.
Yeah.
So you're the sole photographer, the media guy for this stuff?
I'm the official photographer, and the social media or media manager, they call it, is my job title, So I run that on a day-to-day basis for the sponsors that are coming in. They've got some huge sponsors for, like Mercury Engines and Lowrance Echo Sounders, and there's some big companies that I work with that promoting them on a daily and weekly basis. But then leading up to the events, probably 2 months before, I tend to drop the others a little bit and then head into the event, whatever's coming up. Like last year, the World Carp Classic went ahead in September, even in 2020.
Yeah.
And the build up to that was fantastic, It's just all other competitions were down, all shows were down, but we got the green light to do it, and they run it really, really well. Mary Ann that does the admin and that there, which is Ross Honey's wife, she was really particular about all the social distances, all the marks, all the hygiene and the hands. There's a lot of registration was done online and that beforehand, so they could keep the groups. Even the draw and that, everyone stayed in their vehicles, so they're in their little bubbles, so to say.
This is in Madine, wasn't it?
This is at Lacta Madine,
yeah.
And it was just a fantastic event, and it's great for me to watch from the social media, and that's my job, and I want to be successful in that. As it works on my own Instagram page, to start pushing them and pushing it out there. And I think because there wasn't a lot going on for anybody last year, on that Facebook page alone that week when we was at Medina, I'd done 1.7 million reach in a week just off the Facebook page. You know,
yeah, that's incredible.
Were they? So were they? Was it all video or
a bit of everything? So it's like live feeds, photographs that I was taking. You know, bits and bobs, a few little boosts on there as well. You know, just anything that was running. But it was interesting because I'm getting from Ross all the time. You know, if you can get 500 likes, you know, you're winning. Then it's 800. Then it's 1,000. And then I start being cheeky, you know, like, 2,000 this morning likes on that in an hour. Do you get what I mean? It's like just gone mad.
Does the number? Is the numbers thing important to you as well? Is that? Are you always trying to sort of build on?
I'm not a gambling person in the sense of like with monetary things, like, you know, maybe I don't know, something like the National or something, but you know, or the odd lottery ticket. But I'm not a gambling person. But I find it quite addictive. I find it really funny, and I love whirling them up. You know, so. You know, like, you know, it's great when you can tell that the world's focusing on it, because like last year, Polish team and that, you know, and I was like, the Polish team are doing really well, and I see your flags in the comments below and that, and you look around, there's like 150 flags in there, which is great, and they're seeing it, their supporters are seeing it, but I'm doing it because it pushes the algorithm, and then all of a sudden it's getting loads and loads of likes, you know. Right. But it's a win-win. They're getting the information in, because the algorithm's crushed so hard on Facebook and that now that unless you get some, it's down to like 6% or something. It's getting to the point.
And what countries were you getting the most views from? And
you normally see with things that are who's winning or you know,
right,
as it builds up, you know.
Yeah.
And what they've got a really good app now as well that's totally live. So as fish are coming in.
Sorry, what's the name of the app?
Angling Live.
Right.
Yeah. So that when the events are going on, you can follow the live leaderboard and that.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really clever. It's really clever, their app, and I think that's how they're going into the sea fishing one as well, because it's like the predator ones and the sea fishing one will be like that. The people, I think the way that it works specifically is that when they go into the captain's meeting in the morning, they get a ticket, so that's unique to that day, so they can't cheat or forge anything. And then when they get a fish, so the predator one, when they get a pike, then they wear that on the chain and they have a photograph taken with a message, and then it's sent in as a lot. It's measured, so not weight.
So all of these events are they all hooked up to this app now?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so you can follow the World Carp Classic as it's happening, you know, as the fish are going on, and they have to take both sides of the fish, but one side with the you know, their ticket in it. Yeah. And then once it's authenticated, that goes on.
So it was just Medina last year that you went off to with other cancelled events. Where were you supposed to be going?
Last year would have been America for the Angling Super Cup. That's like the Ryder Cup of fishing. So they've got all the predator anglers from America that do the bass fishing and stuff like that, and then all the ones in Europe. So they fused them together as a competition, and it's pretty all the high octane boats and And
I bet the Americans really, I mean, they would really jump on that as well, wouldn't they? That stuff.
Yeah, that's the year before, which I didn't actually go to. It was like can't remember what I couldn't go, but it was like a media event that was set up for the thing. Was off the back of the iCast show, which I believe, and again I've not been there, but from the footage that I did see, that it's the biggest fishing show in the world. You know, it's got hall after hall and after hall. So they'd done a media event after that. You know, I think it was just a one-day competition with a few boats. So they took a few people from Europe, and then a few of the Americans fishing in it. But they loved it. It was a friendly competition, you know.
Yeah.
But you get a little bit of take on these Europeans, and it's all whirling it all up. It was generally created to create a bit of media content, you know. But
have you got any? Because you're an all-round angler as well, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a Korda-sponsored angler, but we said before, so you're one of the longest-standing sponsored.
I believe I am. Ali said a few months ago that he thought that Darryl was, but I think I've been here longer in the sense of I think 2000, definitely 2001, for over 20 years, quarter of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Service man and boy.
Yeah, no, that's nice loyalty as well, isn't it? To you were saying as well with the photography and stuff, you know, that you that's part of your job now as well, isn't it? You take people out on fishing trips and teach them how to use a camera.
Yeah, it's been going on for a few years. I did actually start in about 2007, but to try to get the marketing out there for that kind of thing. because it's not a one-to-one. I'd like to do group events. It was quite difficult, and I was putting adverts in magazines, but the cost outweighed and just didn't really work anyway. But with social media now, that I can get that out there, this weekend's available if you want to come and book. It's been going really well. Last year was absolutely brilliant, you know. And I think because I've been fishing for so long now, and I understand photography, like, you know, similar to the drawing thing, I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying passing on that knowledge. It's quite interesting when you're sitting there and they've gone out and spent maybe £1,000 on a nice DSLR and they don't understand how to take it off of green, and you're saying, you know, the AV button is about aperture, and if you change it, then you can look at your depth of field and get them practically doing it, you know. And then you know, if you get a chance to do the night stuff as well, where they're showing you the shutter, I'm showing them the shutter speed, so they can leave a longer shutter speed to create the night shots of the moon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had a really interesting weekend, and I didn't even realise this before, but I had 5 guys turn up, and not one of them had a DSLR. They're all using their phones, so I had to quickly change everything.
Wow.
And then, but they wanted to understand night stuff and that as well with a phone. It was a little bit bizarre. But
you can do that, though?
You can do it, but it did actually illustrate to those people that there's a limit to what these phones can do. You know, a lot of the stuff was quite blurred and that. You couldn't get a good focal point and that. And it was at a time of the year where it was beautiful light. You know, there was a lot of stars and that in the sky, and quite a few sort of planets and that you could pick up on. So. But yeah, I've really enjoyed these weekends.
Is it like so? It's not like a fishing tuition. But it's a nice way of balancing the two, though, isn't it? Because I mean, that's a nice niche in itself, isn't it? That most stuff is normally focused just around the fishing. And,
you know, it's fishing and photography, so it breaks it up really well.
Yeah.
I really go for it. So an example would be you can maybe do an hour on aperture, so you're showing them how to manipulate their cameras or their phones to get a different focal point and that. And you can see people are a bit exhausted by it, because it's, you know, teaching people again how to see the world. It's not just about the camera, it's how you see objects and what are the focal points and on it. And then I might jump out of the chair and go, right, we'll leave that now, and we're going to move on to casting, you know. So we'll have a look at the difference between long range accuracy and underarm casting or something, because the underarm gives them a practical thing, because I can underarm cast really well, so I sort of show them the
You're finding the underarm casting is more difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's surprising, isn't it? When you try and see someone do an underarm cast, it's like they've never had a fishing rod in their hand before.
Yeah, but I can put it like 30, 40 yards and maybe more. But on top of that, it's really interesting is that when I'm showing them and when you listen to the splash, because you can throw it low and hard across the surface of the water, when you stop it, there's hardly any splash.
Yeah, well, that's...
When you come over the top, every time you come over the top, even the same distance of 20 or 30 yards out, it makes a completely different noise, you know. And you get people starting to think then, they're starting to think, actually, if I can master this, and it's a really nice thing to do, because they can all go back to their swims and you see them practicing it, and you might get a person, because what I do is do these things during the day and then in the evening go and see them on a one-to-one. And they're like, I've tried it, can you just show me again?
So what does... What does your way of underarm casting actually look like compared to...
Okay, because a lot of us use big pit reels.
Yeah.
So I take the bar arm off, holding the spool, and then I pull the line from above the first eye. Okay, because the problem is if you pull the line out from the side of a big pit reel, it's got such a big handle. When you're doing this rocking motion, a lot of the time it goes around the back of the handle or catches on the spool.
yeah, we've all done that, yeah.
So I take it from above the eye, so that's given me the momentum then, do you get what I mean? When I throw it, there's not going to catch on anything, and just as I'm going to ping it, I'll just let go of everything. So it's a rocking motion, 2 or 3 times backwards and forwards, and then just at that pinnacle flicking out, then I go, and you can actually, you see some of them.
So you got a nice flat trajectory.
Yes, it goes across the surface of the water, and you just plonk, and it just, you can hear the difference. Literally, if you put a 2-ounce flat pair on or something without a rig on, you listen to the difference of that going out to you going, stopping it as it's going across the surface of the water. You just stop it, it just plop. Or you go over the top the same distance, you listen to what happens. It's a completely different cast.
Oh no, it is, and
it's caught me a lot of fish.
Has it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And what about with long range casting then?
But I'm not a long range caster myself, but I've spent a lot of time with Mark Hutchinson photographing and filming.
Okay,
him,
so
I know the stance.
Yeah, go on then. Yeah. Well, we've all had casting. Well, a lot of us, we've had casting lessons. I've been Terry Edmonds and
well, he's a similar caster to Hutch, isn't he? Similar technique.
Yes.
So basically, what I teach on the course is that what everyone does is the push and pull motion. So you're trying to throw the lead back, and then it coming through. Whereas it's more like their style of casting is more like a I don't know, medieval trebuchet, is it?
Trebuchet,
where you're trying to get it to go over the top.
Yes.
You know? And you know, even when I'm standing there and showing them, they can work that out because you're not pushing and pulling. You're keeping a straight arm and pulling in as hard as you can. You know.
Do you think a lot of people just want to break their right arm, don't they?
Yeah.
And so you're breaking the arc of the cast. So the cast is too flat, really, isn't it?
It's going
it needs
through,
to be more
coming over the top. Yeah. And then the accuracy cast, which I'm very accurate at casting. I rarely use a clip, even for overhanging trees and stuff like that.
You don't hear that very often nowadays, do you?
And basically with that, so a maximum cast is a half the drop of the rod. That's what Hutch would definitely say. Whereas an accuracy cast, I'd probably use 2/3 of a drop. And what I'm doing with that is I'm casting a little bit higher as well. So he would go at 45 degrees for optimum distance, and I would come up a little bit higher than that because it gives me the control in the air. I can watch it in the air, and then I can slow it down if I need to, or maybe bring the rod out slightly to the right because it's going to go in a little cove of a bush or something. I can change the angles very slightly. It's not a huge change, but yeah, it just gives me that control and that time, you know.
Wow. So people that are coming away on these courses with you, then they're getting a comprehensive experience, aren't they?
Yeah, I enjoy it, and I think they can tell. You know, some of the reviews I've got and some of the comments I've got, I've been putting a few little Instagram bits up recently. And
how do people find you for those courses?
I've actually got a website now.
Oh, have you? Yeah.
Sell it in.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, we will as well, aren't we?
Yeah.
While we're talking about it.
It's PeteCastleFish.com. Everything to do with me online is Pete Castlefish.
Yeah.
So it's all one word. Yeah, I was sort of debating whether to call it fishing and photography courses or something, and I was speaking to like a branding guy, and he was like, "No, your name," and I was just like that. I'm always a bit worried about that, what that means, you know. I'm always a little bit apprehensive about.
It is nice looking site, that.
Yeah.
It's going to look nice. It's got to look nice, isn't it? If we've got this photographer here, who looks at everything a little bit differently in the world.
It changes as you go down. That's smart, though, actually, isn't it?
And you also do it. You do a lot of junior fishings and Jewish that stuff as well, don't you? You've been doing that for 2 decades now, haven't you, as well? Yeah.
When I first got involved with the Carp, started doing the junior stuff. I think I would say me and Danny are the only people that have done them as far as I know at that time, you know. So yeah, 2000, I'd say for 20 years.
You've done the very first Korda one.
I didn't actually, because Joe Morgan was organised that one, but because Korda was still sponsoring the Carp Society ones, so I was the representative for the Carp Society one because that was still running. So the Korda product that went there, I was demonstrating how to use that for the first couple of the Korda ones, you know.
Yeah.
So I was still doing the junior things, but with a different group, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
You must have seen some, stuff over the years with doing that as well with different. Didn't you say to me the other day that sometimes they're a bit disappointed when they get Pete Castle instead of Tom Dove?
Yeah, they do. They get this, especially the Korda run ones. They're super excited about you can hear them chattering. I wonder if I'm going to get Danny. Am I going to get Tom? You know?
Yeah.
And then it's like you see them. I've got Pete Castle, don't even know who he is. You know? However, they don't say that at the end. They always have such a good time, and
they have a different experience with that as well.
Well, they must be passing that on because I get an awful lot of gift from parents. I've had quite a few crates of beers and bottles of whiskey, and I don't see a lot of the other instructors getting those things. You know, I've been very lucky. This is the truth. Over 20 years, I've never had a bad child. I've seen a couple, but I've got on really, really well with everybody, you know. One year with the Korda one, they gave me a couple of young girls, and that was really interesting. It wasn't straight away. They thought that it was going to be different. They weren't, you know. One of them was 16, and she had a little backy tin smoking her rollies and that. And it was just.
Should you be doing that? Yeah.
Well, she was 16.
Yeah, right.
But it was just, like having a couple of lads there. It wasn't any, and I think that's why they put me with them, because they knew I'd perceive it as that and just crack on, you know.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because we had a lot of fish. We was on a bit of a point. at Lake at Biggleswade, and the fish were coming in and they just didn't stop coming in. And I said to them early on, and we have an agenda, and Danny's quite strict about that, about the things that you have to go through, you know. But it was like, okay, we can do a bit of this, but you can have 2 days of an absolute masterclass of floater fishing here if you want it. And they're like, let's do it. And in the end, I could sit back, they were helping each other, baiting when one had a fish on. The camera crew were around all the time, Ali was round and that, and they absolutely hauled, you know. I have a few people say to me when I'm at shows or on the bank and that they remember that show, you know.
And you've said as well that you might sometimes get into a swim with a junior and decide to not necessarily fish as everybody else would to start off with, and maybe just bait the swim and then go off and do something else as well.
I think that you're sort of showing them different tips and tactics, different ways. Yeah. There's one thing I've always noticed about the curriculum. The curriculum has been made in a certain kind of way. For an example, there's no float fishing for carp on there. I float fish for carp, you know, with a worm or something, you know. There's lots of different types of carp fishing, and there's lots of different ways that you can catch carp, you know. So there's a curriculum, and I try to stick to that as much as possible. Solid bag work, or you know, different types of knots, you know, that I think are really important. But there are things on that list I don't know what they are. There's one on there that says shocker rig, and every time I look at it and I think, what is a shocker rig? I don't know. I really don't know myself, and I'm like a bit like that. We'll give it a tick.
Give it a tick.
We've done that.
So do you like this modern carp fishing curriculum?
Yeah, I think, well, to do this with those kids and that, it's a special moment for them, you know. They get to meet some of their heroes and whatever you want to call it, you know. But for me, it's a way of putting something back, and always has been. I've made a career for 20 years out of carp fishing, you know, and if I can't spend a few days, you know, spend a bit of time with the next generation. What's interesting with that, with some of them early ones, because not only was I doing that, I've done a few carp talk competitions, so I was taking youngsters to France for a week, you know. And some of them people now, one of them, I can remember this lad, and he was quite tall as a kid then, but he was like 14, 15, and I've seen him at shows, and he's like 35 years old now, a lorry driver with a long beard and got his own family, you know. And I find it really weird how time has really changed. Yeah. And, you know, he was looking up to me a little bit and was like, all right, Pete. And now he's like bearing down on me, 6'4", going, all right, Pete, how are you? Like, it was really sweet. All of these lads still come up to me wherever I see him or message me on Instagram and that. It's obviously had an impact, you know. Yeah. One of the things that I really recognise as well is that a lot of the time I'm giving to kids that don't know each other, and then I'll follow them on Instagram or something, and I've seen that they've gone to Linear together afterwards. They've made a friendship, they've made a connection, and you know, that's what it's all about to me. You know, if you can do that, then. So
you're aware of that as well, you know, especially like with the youngsters. It's teaching them something about life as well, as much as just about going fishing.
Yeah, because when you're doing that on that curriculum, it doesn't say anything about, you know, don't litter the swims or, you know, whatever it might be. The carp care,
but just general sort of etiquette.
You're talking about like like I said, I've rarely had a problem. I had one little thing one day which was sorted out straight away because I only had one surface rod, you know, and it almost become a squabble between them, you know, and I was like, don't really want that, you know. You catch one, you help him, and it was sorted out straight away, and that's really, really good, you know.
Do you think it's important as well to give to give these kids try and encourage them to have their own identity when they go fishing? You can walk around these lakes nowadays and see everybody fishing exactly the same way. Yeah. And I guess part of that curriculum does encourage, you know, the marker sticks and the spomming and, you know, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Marker floats. You know, do you try and get away from that as much as you can as well to just give them a more broader experience? Yeah,
because I spend so much time stalking and, you know, having a bit of a, you know, where they're using measuring sticks and stuff like that. I'll bait an area, so it's more of a catapult than a spod or a spom, so I'm not fishing so tight, you know, because I do so much stalking and watch the fish on the surface that, you know, 1 minute the fish is there and then it's over there, and I know that they're doing that on the bottom as well. Yes, obviously you have feeding spots, you know, but generally I'm not so particular in that, you know. I don't really fish with a marker rod or clip up and that now. I watch what the fish are doing. Yeah. I'm not so much of a trap setter. I'm sort of like trying to go with the flow of what they're doing rather than trying to change their behaviour. Sense.
I mean, the thing with that for me is as well. It's just you've got to be so much more prepared for everything as well, haven't you?
My tackle bag is ridiculous.
Yeah.
My tackle bag, I've got a big carry-all, and it's got everything, that you could want to catch carp in it, from zig rigs to floater fishing stuff. Then there's separate buckets for floater fishing stuff. Now I've carried an unhooking mat that has got, my Korda tackle box in it, then another bag in it, and I've got a ridiculous armoury of bits because that's how I fish. I don't know, maybe an example would be with the bigger Korda controllers, the interceptor ones, that you can fish them free rods out there with if you've got fluorocarbon on. So basically you can anchor them by having the fluorocarbon, your main line, coming off the float and then almost on a slack line. You can anchor them out in the lake, and then you can spod floaters and that over the top,
Yeah.
So you can put them on the buzzers and fish like that if you want to. But if you saw that opportunity and you haven't got 3 spare spools of fluorocarbon on and all the kit with you, then, even the last few days, a few people have been caught out, haven't they? Fish suddenly appeared on the top in March. Yeah. And I caught a fish last March, so I know I would have probably had my stuff with me,
You said as well the other day as well, didn't you, that the, you're not an umbrella guy, are you? A minimal sort of, a carpy looking carp angle, if you want to call it that, are you?
No, I wouldn't class myself as carpy. No.
Yeah.
I've
you got
the thing is with that and that minimalist stuff, and I've been around the block long enough and seen it sort of come as well. That I find that a lot of those people will not be there. I've had that criticism when I'm there catching fish off the surface. When I'm catching fish off the surface, that you'll see they're sort of like almost, we'll see who's here in the winter and that, you've got your big bivvy and everything else. We're hardcore and everything else,
Yeah.
And I'm always the last one there in the winter.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that
they've got too cold.
Yeah, they've got too cold and sitting underneath that umbrella and their gear's wet and everything else,
And you say as well that these anglers as well, they're always coming over and can I come inside your bivvy, Pete?
Yes.
It's a little bit like
or borrow something.
Or borrow something.
It could be a really obscure thing. You haven't got a needle, have you? Like a sewing needle. And I've got a needle. I've got 2. Borrow one. But it's a really funny thing, I did have it on a lake once years ago, and somebody had said to me that they've had a complaint or a T-man. I didn't actually have a choice because I was a student at the time, and that was the only bivvy I had. But I had a bed chair and a deck chair in there, a big chair in there. But that was the same. They all gradually dissipated through the autumn, and I was the only one there in the winter, just sitting there in my nice bivvy.
Nice bivvy, comfortable.
Yeah.
It's like with anything, isn't it? You can't perform properly if you're, if you're wet, damp, and cold.
But if you're not enjoying it,
what's
exactly.
The point in being there? Yeah.
No, keeping dry, keeping warm, and enjoying it. And I've woke up and it's quite spectacular surroundings. Where the sun's maybe just poking up over a minus 8, minus 10 night, and the lake's gone completely solid, and you just think, whoa, them sort of like deep purples and pinks in the sky, and that. It's
so amazing. as a kid and stuff, were you always like quite curious?
Very, yeah. So my fishing, I've got photographs from 1976. I was 3 years old. There's photographs of me on the River Stour. There's people fishing around me. I've not got a rod in my hand, but I can remember being there. Around that time and sort of dipping nets and stuff like that underneath the bridge. So I've always been around it. My dad fished and carried on fishing as we were growing up, and I've got 2 older brothers, so they were sort of more coarse anglers, and they still fish a little bit now. But it was always weird when you definitely had a pecking order. So if my dad was in the prime swim, and then my older brother was next to him, and then the next one, and I was always on the outside. I've actually got a younger brother as well, but he's 5 years younger than me, so he's sort of out the group. But I always used to notice then that I would go off. I would maybe see a carp when we were walking around to set up in the corner under some scum, and I'd go off down there with my sandwiches, try and catch one. Normally get snapped up, and the mystery of the big carp, There's something that always stands in my head outside Bury St Edmunds where I grew up. There was a pond, Ingham, and it was opposite an old sort of landfill dump, and there was a few heard of a few fish and that in there, and we went over there when we were kids, and it was my first. There was a tree that had fallen over into the water, and it was my first experience of going out and actually being right over the water at a low level, and I saw 2 carp go underneath me there, and it really stands out in my mind now as a visual thing. It was the first time them carp probably about 7.5 to 10 pound now, which is relatively small, but at the time, if I was on a boat and saw a killer whale go underneath it, it would have the same impression, you know. It really does stand in my mind as a visual thing of thinking, wow, you know, like that was just majestic. They didn't spook, they didn't see me, they just glided right underneath me, you know, come from one side and I put my head out the other and they went through, you know. It really stands out as an image in my head. I never caught any carp from there, like, because we were just coarse fishing. Probably about 20 years later I was driving past there and I thought, I wonder, you know. And I pulled over on the side of the road and jumped out, and there was some carp on the top, and I put out some mixers and they started taking, and I opened the boot, like started pulling out my stalker rod and that. And I put my rod back in and shut the boot and thought, you know what, that mystery that I saw as a kid and that, I want that to just stay in my head, you know. I don't want to see what they are, you know, and I'll just leave them alone. Fishing had been forgotten about on there. Nobody was fishing it anymore, you know. Maybe they were the same old carp, you know.
Wow.
I just left it and drove off, you know.
And you feel like that. That's not the first time you felt like that. Sometimes you might bait a swim and get the fish going and think, do you know what? I've got them going. I can catch them now. I'm
terrible with floaters like that. Much to people's annoyance, you know, because I'm pretty adamant that I won't let them do it either, you know. If I can get them really, really packed, man, and I've maybe spent all day, some people will think right now is the opportunity to really go for it, you know, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to fish. I'll just keep feeding them and watching them and let it get dark and cool down and dissipate and walk away, you know.
How many people are like that nowadays? Really? I mean, it's like...
I can be a bit strange. I was thinking about one on the way down there. You're going to laugh at this one. I can be like that with hooks. If I've caught fish during the day and I've got a hook that's maybe not quite as sharp as it should. If the tip's gone over, I'll change it. But maybe I know that it's not quite sharp, you know. I'll put it out. I'm a bit like, well, I've caught 3. I'll give them a bit of a chance, you know. I don't know why I do that. I don't. But it's like... I want to catch one on not such a sharp hook, you know.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with it.
Yeah.
If you're allowed to use tigers on a lake, I've done it before where I've caught 3 or 4 fish and I'll take the tigers off. I don't want to catch on tigers anymore. I want to try something else. I can remember being at a lake in France and I was absolutely battering it to the point of where if I put one rod out there, it would go, you know. I had the spot really rocking on maggots, and in the end I just stopped fishing the spot. I see some fizzers in deep water, and I spent 2 days trying to catch one out of deep water, and I caught one. But that was the challenge now, and I got the spot going that good. The rods were clipped up to the spot. It just become like, I can remember kicking my Weetabix over, like pouring the milk on the Weetabix. And I can't stand soggy Weetabix. I poured the milk on the Weetabix, and all of a sudden I've gone to eat my first bite, and the rod's gone deet, 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 and I've put the Weetabix down and kicked them, you know, as if to say, for God's sake, you know, like how inconsiderate. I'm trying to eat, and I knew at that point I've got to change my rod because it's like you got the spot rocking that much.
We've got to stop.
We've got to stop. You know, this is just silly, you know.
Yeah.
So
it's a combination of. It sounds like it's a combination of, you know, wanting a challenge. But respect for the fish as well.
Definitely, yeah. Because I've got a good agreement with my missus, and this has been going on. We've been together now, I think, 17 years, and we've got a good agreement on this. I go fishing for a couple of nights or something, and if I haven't caught anything and I'm on fish and I want to stay for another night, she hasn't got a problem with it, because the opposite often happens. I've turned up to the lake and I've caught a couple of nice fish and I've gone home, you know, because I'm really the type of person that I want to fulfill that, whatever that is inside me. But if I catch 3 or 5 or 7, you know, when I get to 7, am I gonna feel any better than I did when I caught 3, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think it does, so I'm quite happy to say, or even not just to respect for the fish, but somebody else, you know. One of the times when I was over in France, I can remember doing it. Moved around into the swim, started really hitting the fish hard, and there was a lad, Andy, further up that had not caught anything. Most other people had caught, and I just run up to see him, and I said to him, look, you know, if you want to move in there, move in there. If not, I'm going to go and get my night gear, and I'm going to move in.
I'm going to drive back to England.
Yeah.
I've had it, yeah.
But no, and I said to him, and he was like, yeah, I'll move in. And he went on and caught some really nice fish, and it made his week. He was there, he was part of the group, you know, he had paid his money. Why did he want to go all the way to be to France and be the only one that didn't catch, kind of thing, you know? I think
it's incredibly selfless, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's about that. I think it's nice. That's why I do these weekends and stuff. You know, I'm not really there for me. I'm there to see other people smile. And
so the majority of your fishing is it done with, you know, tuitions and you know, events?
I think I like all aspects of carp fishing, and the more and more I look at it, because I do lots of different events. I think there are lots of different types of carp fishing. You know, you've got your big carp scene and you know, that carpy look and all of that kind of thing, where they'll sit there for weeks on end on syndicates. I've done that. But you've got the opposite end of the spectrum, where you've got, you know, guy in his mid-60s has booked a little farmhouse in France, you know, it's full of 20-pounders. He goes over there with his bait boat and he catches 10 a day. Do you get what I mean? Of these, you know, and he wants the runs. That's what they've gone there for, you know.
Yeah.
I've filmed these venues, I've met these people, and they've got a smile from ear to ear. They're having a great fun. Look, watch, I've dropped my bait boat, like that. They love it. And the people that are on these hard syndicates in the UK might frown upon that, but those people are not interested in their fishing either. There's it's all carp fishing. Another example would be on the Medine, you know. You've got 3 guys turn up for a competition. There's 3 transit vans full of gear. You'd never seen so much stuff, you know. As much technology as you could chuck at it, you know. And it's completely alien to what I do in the UK, you know, of sitting on my syndicate with fluorocarbon slack lines. They're fishing 350 metres out with their rods up, and their lines going out at different angles over weed beds so they can go through them, you know.
And they like their comforts as well, don't they? These European
mess tents, you know.
I mean, it's
huge cooking systems and that.
Yeah.
I've had the most spectacular coffees and that. I can remember one of them. We was some Italian guys, and it was raining hard, and I went into one of these little mess tents, and they were like, "Oh, sit down," you know. He's like, "You want a coffee?" And it was like this whole process went on, this ritual process. It went on for about half an hour, you know, and the rain was coming down. I had nowhere to go, you know. Anyway, there was nothing else to do, but it was, it was almost like a ceremony, you know. But the coffee was just unbelievable.
That's
you know,
quality,
it's like
yeah.
it's real like delicacy.
Yeah.
You know? It's all like percolated out. And
Yeah.
No, that part of it, the more I understand about it, with the travelling and stuff like that, the different types of people you meet, the hospitality from different countries and stuff like that, I'm all for that. The more diversity, the more different life perspectives and understanding, that's what I want to do, you know. I like the UK scene. I like the hard syndicate stuff. My syndicate, there's some nice scaly dark old carp in there.
Is this where we went the other day?
Yeah, the nunnery.
Nice, yeah.
The D Lake at the minute has got a huge hedge, the big scaly ones in that. This last little bit, because it's closed on the 1st of April, I think there was 11 or 12, maybe more, decent sized fish out, a few 40 scaly ones and that, you know. It's a kind of, it's a lovely place. And I do like that scene, but I also like, you know, taking the kids fishing and catching 10-pounders on a float, you know, just enjoying a few hours.
You got your own kids?
Yes.
So they're really into their fishing.
They're really into it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oscar is, yeah.
And do you see some similarities in, you know, from you to them?
Yeah, to some extent, although they're very different to me, you know. Oscar, my oldest one, would be sort of an engineer or something when he's old. He's very, very calculated, you know.
Well, that's you, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, you've got an engineer in mind, haven't you?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been fishing since he was very young. So I had a guy the other day on the phone. He was saying, "Oh yeah, I've got 2 young kids and that, and when they're 5 or 6, I might take them fishing." And I said, "Well, Oscar done his first week on the bank when he was 6 months old," and he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, he used to have reels to sort of lay on his back and play with." And
really?
Yeah. But you want to see him cast, you know?
Yeah.
When he was 3 years old, this is a funny one. He was in the front garden, and we used to actually the logs are still there. We had a willow that was taken down, and there was the mini Korda spod. So I had this little rod, and when he was 3, what he was doing was casting over the logs, and if he got over the logs, he'd get stuck. So I'd go round there and get hold of the spod and like let it go, and he'd reel it across the grass. So he cast over the logs, and I went round there, it was stuck, and I'm saying, reel it up, and he's like taking a bail arm off, and I'm going, reel it up, what you doing? And he went, don't worry, he's pulling the line off, I've got a wind knot. Right, this is 3. He put the line up, he put the thing over the spool and put his finger on the line, so hold it tight, and then started reeling it up. Well, let it go.
Oh, right, nice.
I've got a wind knot at 3. I just thought, I didn't even know where he got the vocabulary from.
Wow.
But because he's been round it all the time, so he was 6 months, and then Dan done his first week when he was 6 weeks old, the youngest one. So they've been around it all the time.
Where does the missus blend into all of this?
She used to fish with me, you see. So,
yeah.
We used to do a lot of travelling to France. I think one year we done 14 weeks in France or something, doing a lot of holiday reviews and venues and stuff. And again, I'm sure some of your listeners that are the real carpy crew will be thinking like, oh yeah, fishing these venues and that. But I tell you, travelling to some of these places and having your own gîte with a swimming pool and having your own lake and doing your own thing, we've had some crazy adventures, met some really nice people. When she was starting to get into the fishing, there was one morning that I can really vividly remember. There was a place called Chateau de Giggy, which is more like a French holiday place. So there's a huge chateau with all the holiday park and everything, and we were about probably a mile away from there, completely away from all of that, with a really nice big stone gîte, like big beds and everything in there. And when you opened the window, you could see you had your own 12-acre lake and full of carp on a misty morning, and that. There was even just an isolated bench on the damn wall. So we set up on this point, and after a couple of days, she was getting more and more into it. And what I'd done was we went round. What we were doing was staying in the gîte, but then getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and then fishing. And we went round there, and I got everything set up, and 2 rods each, but put the 4 rods out. And then just said, I need to go to the loo, or need to go to go for a shower, but didn't really need to go, So purposely left her with all the nets and all the rods and everything. And I'll never forget her face when I come back. She's going, I've had a run on all those. This rod went off and that, and then the hook got caught in the net, and it was just, there was nets and rods everywhere, But how quickly she had learned, do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And just because she was at that point where it was time to leave her to do it. I didn't need to be doing it for her anymore,
You're quite conscious of that as well, put people in the position and, learn it for themselves as well.
Yeah. Can't always. Even my little ones, I took them fishing the other day, just fishing with just little rods, catching roach and stuff like that, and it was like, can you unhook it? And I'm like, no, I can't at the second. I'm like doing something on my phone or something. It's a work tech. It's not, mucking about on Instagram or something, but it's like, no, you unhook it, you learn.
Didn't your dad do that with Francesca?
Yeah, he did the
same.
That,
because she hooked her, Damien's daughter.
Yes.
She hooked a decent sized carp, didn't she?
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
And he just let her play it in.
It's the best way to do it,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Take the armbands off as quickly as possible.
She still likes to remind me that carp's bigger than my PB.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't hear the end of it, mate, honestly. And she's what, like 10?
10, yeah. Yeah, similar age to Oscar. I can remember when they were little. Yeah. Another really good thing that I do with them when they're small is casting at the end, and I used to do that a lot, at the end of the session before my parents pick me up or something, take the rig off and just cast about with a lead. And I often do that because I've got 2 boys. They get a bit competitive. We had one where we was fishing at Fox Surf, and there's like a tunnel between the 2 lakes, and I was like, I think it might have even been, I said, a 5 or a 10. If someone gets it in that tunnel, they win.
Game on.
And there was a couple of them that were like right on the edge, like an inch. It hit the mud, so they had to run around there and take it out like a little, like an ounce and a half, like a flat pair or something. But it's great to get them going like that, have a little bit of fun, and it teaches them so much really, really quickly.
Yeah, no, it does. So so for when you were a kid, then, so you it's like you've got fishing in your blood, which a lot of people that come on the show, they've got that common experience. But you said through school and stuff that you left school before you even got any qualifications. You didn't do your GCSEs.
No, I left school when I was 14. Very, very unusual sort of second.
14's a funny age.
I know.
I'm done with this.
Yeah, I just never really understood why I was there, and I think that went on from a very early age. I felt like I was jumping from being in the bottom set for things to the top set of things, partly to do with being able to read and write, I think, because people's expectations of me were, for some reason, that you're knowledgeable enough to do it, but actually then they'd say, read that passage in this book, stand up and read that, and I just refused to do it because I couldn't do it. I couldn't read, you know. So it's just like, rather than embarrass myself, you know, stuttering my way through, I'd just go, nah. But I was never in trouble. I never got put on report, or I never was mischievous, you know. I never upset the class, or I used to quite like the harder teachers and that, you know.
But you were worried about how you would look.
Yes.
If it was.
Yeah, there's a certain amount.
And then because I've seen you're so extreme, you are, because I see you're in nightclubs and stuff like that, and then you're breakdancing and stuff as well, and it's like,
I had someone ask me that once. How did you learn how to do that then? And it's like, well, you know, that's a street thing, isn't it? It's kind of like, and it happened when breakdancing come out. I learnt in, you know, it was all started coming out from America in 1983, 1984. I was 10, 11 years old and had me bit of lino and that, and I like watching it. I never actually. Yeah, it's one of the problems I have me back and that now, you know. So got a bit of scoliosis.
Well, how much did you do that?
Yeah, a lot. I used to be in a bit of a crew and that. We were pretty good, you know.
Whereabouts?
Well, it was in Bury St Edmunds, which was take on the Ipswich lot and things like that.
The Ipswich lot. Yeah. Was it like that Eminem film where you're like, you have a, what do they call it? The sing-offs that they.
Oh, it's a rap battle.
Yeah,
it's a bit
it's
like
a
burn,
dance off.
It's a what?
A burn.
A burn.
Yeah. There's a bit. It was funny. I put a shot on Instagram, and straight away a guy come on there. He recognised it because you got probably it's like a 12th century monastery that was taken down in King Henry VIII's era when they took down the Abbey Gardens there. So you've got all these abbey ruins that people come in, and it's all nicely decorated with flowers, but there's a perfect piece. There's like a raised mound and then a perfect rectangle of concrete, like just in the middle of this grass. So for break dancers, they used to put their lino on this, and then the raised area was where the crowd would be. And I can remember the guys coming from Ipswich for the burn, and the whole crowd and that'd be round there, and it got a bit nasty at the end, and they got a bit chased out of town. I was too young to
chased out of town.
Yeah, it all went a bit strange, you know. It was, but it was part of that kind of like that scene. But it was all going off then. You had people there on BMXs and skateboards.
Oh yeah, all that. But the 80s were great, weren't they?
That was all there. You know, my oldest brother and that, he was into BMXing, so he was doing the same kind of thing, going up ramps and having competitions. He had all the helmet and all the gloves and the stunt nuts and all of that, you know. It was
a great time, that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. What was going on?
Yeah. So were you like that, like the chief of your group? No, he was the main man.
I was normally the younger,
the front man.
I was the youngest.
Right.
So, yeah. We had sort of different people that could do different moves and that, you know. One of the lads that was sort of like that run it, he was working and that, so I was still quite young at school, but he was working, and he was a body popper, and he was so into body popping and that. Where I lived, there was a green out the front of mine, and I used to see him when I was getting ready for school or something, you know, having my breakfast stand at the kitchen window. I'd see him walking across the grass, like body popping his way to work, you know, like just like a good skateboarder would skate, you know. So he would be locking and popping across the field and that, you know. He was so into it, but he was really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when he come out, it's just he wanted to take it to another level, you know.
Would you do? I was watching that Leaving Neverland, you know, that Michael Jackson thing the other night, and the two guys that were saying they got molested by him, and they were showing their they were like 7 years old and how good they were at dancing at that age, and it's like that's a really cool thing to get into at that age, and it's like, cracky, where does it come from that quickly that you can sort of develop that you know, that movement?
I was all with my older brothers and that, we was always roughing and tumbling, and you know, I was quite into things like you know, if you had like the gym thing at school or something like that, you know, I could do a forward somersault off a springboard, or you know, if there's a ropes going up to the ceiling, I was up there like a monkey, you know. I was like, you know, I see Scott Lloyd sometimes with his tree shots, his high tree things. I used to be terrible with stuff like that, you know. I worked on churches when I first left school, and that them church towers, we used to scaffold them. So I'd be like 120 foot up, you know, just walking across the scaffold pole, not the board, So I'll just be like...
It's like them videos of people like hanging off of big towers and stuff like that just by one hand. Is that what you're like?
Well, I was terrible. There was a really funny thing happened once that we used to have races. So when we were right up the top on the church tower thing, when it was break time, the stuff would be in the truck, you know. So they would go down the ladders, and they were really good because they were experienced builders and that. So they would go down the ladders like doing like a fireman's lift, but sometimes a ladder would be at the other end of the scaffold boards that they'd run, and I'd go down the outside a lot of the time like a big monkey frame, you know, and there'd be a race to the bottom. And I can remember one time right at the bottom when there was a lot of headstones and that, so I had to be careful where I jumped off, so I like run across the end of the scaffold boards and jumped off and made a bit of a cat noise, like I beat them, like meow, like that. And there was just this huge burst of laughter. There was all the kids were getting ready to go in for the choir practice or whatever it was, and I just didn't even see them. It was hilarious. I was just like that. I was like really shy at that point. I was like, everyone was like cracking up laughing. They were just getting very queued up to go in, and I've just come launching off making a cat noise. It's only 16, 17 at the time.
Oh, it's fun. But then, so you decided, like, so you left school and so what did you do then when you left at 14?
My parents had their own business in domestic appliances, so sales, but also installation was the most thing. So you're talking late 80s, a lot of development and that going on, even around, you know, Colchester and stuff like that, where a lot of the guys that work here live, you know, huge development. So basically that was kind of like part of the reason why I wanted to go as well, because I knew that their business was growing and they could do the help and that as well, you know. My two older brothers were working in it, and so it wasn't like I was just going and doing nothing.
But we were talking as well about, because I said to you, I trained as a therapist, right, and I've not got degrees in master stuff and, you know, PhDs or whatever, and then you turned around and said, oh, well actually, yeah, he sort of trumped me a little bit.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you're a trained psychologist.
Yeah, well, I've got 2 degrees and a master's degree, and I've got a diploma as well.
Wow. Like you do, yeah. Yeah.
So I couldn't read or write till I was 22.
You actually couldn't read or write, or you didn't try to read and write?
When I went into college because I had to do an access course, which is an A-level equivalent to get into university, and I went in there and I sat down with him and I said, this is the problem. And the guy that helped me, a guy called Julian at the time, it literally was Janet and John books that I started on, you know.
Yeah.
You know, the cat sat on the mat kind of thing,
Wow.
you know.
At what age did you, sorry Pete, what age did you do that?
22.
That's late, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say your girlfriend was a teacher?
At the time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
was that what got you back into education?
She was a private school girl, and the girlfriend at the time, this is not the current one, and basically she got all straight firsts at A-level, then went to Oxford. So I was travelling backwards and forwards there, and it was kind of like from then on it was to watch people go off from there, you know. So she ended up being a teacher in Sri Lanka. I went out there a couple of times, and then she just went on to other things, you know. It was always going to be worldly, you know. Almost similar stuff to this, working, volunteering in radio stations and bits and bobs to gradually accelerate getting up the ladder, you know. And I realised at that point that actually having an education and giving you that confidence, you know, receiving a letter and understanding how to reply to it, you know, it's a really basic thing, you know. But also
once you started learning, you couldn't stop then.
I couldn't stop. No, when I got to uni, well, the college thing went really well, and what was really interesting was I love doing really crazy things like this. So the drawing that I've given you there, I was quite into drawing like faces and eyes and stuff like that. Sometimes like old men and that, because you've got that real texture and that in there. So with my UCAS application thing I was sending off to these universities, sometimes I would slide a little drawing in there as well. So I got accepted to every university that I applied to, all 6 of them. And all the academics that were in my class, a lot of them accepted. And I was thinking,
really?
Yeah, because I just write, you know, with the bit where you can write what you want to write rather than what they want to hear. I'll be very flamboyant with it, you know, just let them see me and a little drawing in there. And I ended up going to Hull University in East Yorkshire, and the guy even pulled out my application when I was talking to him in the personal interview and that, and he was like, can I just ask why you put that in there, you know? And I was like, well, you like it, didn't you? And he said, I do, a lot actually. And I said, well, there we are then. It's like, you know.
It's clever, yeah. It's me.
Yeah, it's me. This is what I do, you know. And, you know, when you're applying to the social sciences and you're sending a picture of someone with a human face on it. It's not exactly too distant, is it? It's kind of.
So when you got into, education again and stuff, did you want to educate yourself on everything? Or, I mean, why psychology?
Psychology, sociology, anthropology. I think, to be honest with you, it was how I perceive the world, and anyway, I've always been a little bit.
Anthropology is obviously, you can see that as well with, with studying different societies and stuff like that.
And I've always had a fascination with that, Yeah. I think a lot of the things that I realised straight away with studying them subjects, that they were just putting a vocabulary and a theory around how I perceived the world anyway. I didn't see it. I think I got on well with it because I had an interest in it. I've always been a people watcher.
So through doing this, do you think that was when your perception of the world sort of developed more as a consequence of doing that?
Yeah, and in those years. So it's quite interesting you asked that question for who I am at the minute. That when I sort of like was heading towards the end of that was when I was 27. And I think I come of age at that point when I was sort of doing my masters and that, and I realised, and this wasn't being rude, but sitting in lectures and that I knew more about those subjects than the lecturers themselves, because there was a lot coming from the social work perspective, and I'd studied so hard in the other areas, that I felt comfortable not to do that anymore, and that I had an identity of who I am, and I don't think that's really changed from when I was 27. I'm 47 now, so in the last 20 years, I can't think that gave me really what I needed to do, that I could read and I could write. So having the ability to read, I could read anything. I could read a fishing book well, I could write an article, hopefully well. Or build a website and have the confidence to write the text that's got to go behind it. There's FAQs on that site, It's like that. It's really, really powerful. It's something I'm really trying to teach my children at the minute, of all the things, Every evening they read, 3 or 6 pages, whatever it is that they do of their books on their thing, and I just explain that if you get that, if you understand that you can read anything, you can get your head around anything. If you can't do that with confidence, then how can you understand any subject that you choose, It's a bit like brushing their teeth. I have a lot of problems with my teeth. I didn't brush them a lot when I was younger, and a lot of dentists working that now, and I'm just get in that routine. Them teeth have got to last you to possibly 100 years old, If there's one thing I can teach you, brush your teeth and read,
Yeah.
Sorry, Pete, so correct me if I'm wrong. So you went from 22 to not being able to read or write well at all to 27 you were finishing a master's, is that right? That's incredible.
It is.
That's a little bit mind-blowing.
Yeah, they offered me a scholarship for a PhD and that as well.
I bet they did.
Yeah. It was my second year at uni was really bizarre. I did sort of briefly say that, I mentioned it to you the other day, that there was a period because I was sort of like understanding about just simple things, how people perceive the world, and going into a more physical thing. So an example would be like how we perceive and interpret colour, that you actually use more calories looking at the colour red than you do any other colour,
You use more calories?
Yes.
Wow.
How do you do that?
So there's a physical element to what we're doing all the time,
Right.
So it's those sort of, I suppose at the time, complicated things of getting your head around with all the theory and all the information that's coming from the lecturers, it had a big impact on me at the time, where I wanted to know more. I was really hungry, so it was quite noticeable in my second year for me. This was like the pinnacle of, I think, before I started to sort of like ease off of it, where you would have other students and I'd say, well, how many books have you got in that bibliography for that essay? And they'd be like, 6 or 3 or something. There was one of them, I had like 82 books.
No way.
I was just stripping it out, and I was proper going for them as well. So because it was the social sciences,
82 books.
Yeah, but here's an example of how hard I was going for the lecturers, because there's in the social sciences at the time, there's a real thing about like feminism and gender debates and stuff like that, So I was sitting in these lectures all the time, predominantly with women, and a lot of the time the guys were bringing the lectures in. But a lot of the time, because it's the debate of feminism and feminisation and all stuff like that is based around women's studies, So I really got annoyed with it, because when I was in the library, it was a huge 7-floor library. When you type that in, feminism, feminisation, gender studies, everything else, there's 4,000 books. When you type in masculinity, masculinisation and things like that, there was 2. It's like, there's not a debate, is there? You know?
Right.
It's like, where's the debate?
Yeah.
If women are prescribed a role for being in the household and everything else, then men are equally prescribed the role for being stereotypical. If you put dress a girl in pink, then guys are stereotyped to be dressed in blue. You know?
Right.
So you have to understand the whole debate, you know. So it was interesting. I caused some havoc, you know, in tutorials mostly, you know, because I found it offensive, you know, that they're almost playing to the crowd, you know, because then they become what they say they don't like, you know. So yeah. So I got my own questions written sometimes, you know, because there was no questions, you know. It was about, how does this affect women and this, that and the other, and I managed to change it. I gave one of them my own question of, there's no such thing as masculinity. So this guy, I'd heard reports he'd never given a first before, and I got 78%.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah. And at the time, there's books coming into the library that were touching the subject, you know. Like, if you're going to have a debate about it, you know, in my eyes, a lot of these guys in the First World War that went to war and lost their lives and that, they didn't want to go. They're prescribed their gender as well. They were pushed by their girlfriends and their wives and their mums and their grandparents, you know, you be a strong man. Some of them feared for their life, you know, they didn't want to do stuff like that.
But I imagine even if they weren't pushed, they were probably socially kind of pushed as well. If they see everybody else they know doing it, you almost feel obliged.
I feel it as a man now. I'm a, you know, provider for the house, and you know,
you feel like you've got that responsibility to.
But it's a prescribed role, isn't it? I've taken on that. I've got a pair of jeans on now. Do you get what I mean? It's kind of like I'm prescribed that as much as in that debate. That's how I perceive it, you know, and that's not to belittle anybody. You know, I'm quite happy with accepting fat, thin, black, white, male, female. I don't care.
Right.
You know, I don't.
How do you think, obviously, because you were doing that study 20 years ago now, how do you think that's changed, obviously, 20 years later to where we are now?
Changed me or changed it?
No, the whole debate around gender and assigned roles and stuff like that, because we see it change a lot, especially in very recent years.
Well, in the fishing context, I think it's interesting.
Let's bring it into the fishing context.
Yes, because I'm a great believer that everybody should have a chance, as I've taught these children when I've been out of them, or teenagers, or they gave me them 2 girls that time, and I've seen other girls and them things. It doesn't make any difference to me. I don't think there's anything in carp fishing that a bloke can do better than a woman or anything else, you know. I think it's interesting that what I've noticed a lot, even when I was younger, is that you'd have a lot of girls getting into course fishing and stuff like that, and they'd move away from it, you know. I think it's a shame that it's not pushed harder. I really do, because in the context of golf, if you took women out of golf, you know, the industry would really suffer. It must be a huge percentage, and there's nothing in a carp lake of why. So I think if you push that line, you could see the industry expand a whole lot quicker and a whole lot more, you know. No. We should. We talked to Bev about that yesterday as well, didn't we? You know that's what. But it seems like it's taken them a long time to actually catch on to that. You know. Yeah. We've been doing this for a long time, and it's only recently really people like her, that are really trying to push it on now. It's so far behind, aren't we? Well, I wrote an article about it, and none of the magazines wanted to publish it. I wrote an article about it about 15 years ago. Women in carp fishing, and saying that you can't stereotype the gender in the adverts. You can't put a titty girl in an advert or in the magazine, and you're trying to discourage it and encourage it. None of the magazines would print it.
Right. It's interesting that they wouldn't print it.
Yeah. It was too hard for them.
Think it'd be different now?
I don't know. I think there's still a little bit of an edge with it, but personally, all my girlfriends in the past have come fishing with me. A really great one from a younger age, she'd never been fishing before. She got right into it, and then when we split up, we remained not friends as in talking, but if we saw each other, it wouldn't be a problem. And she had taught her boyfriend to fish, so she had gone away with those skills. And I'd seen him at Dixon's or something, and she was like, "Oh, I just wanted to introduce you," and that, and he was like right into it.
Flipping hell.
So she had taken the skills, carried on fishing, and then the new boyfriend, hadn't been a fisherman, and he had learnt to fish from her.
Yeah.
That's just, I love it.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. No, it provided, but you still felt that the women need to be introduced to it first.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys, we kind of naturally stumble into it through, like, I mean, I was at school, and your school friends would do it. It's difficult. It's a bit more difficult for women to. They're not going to be around other school friends necessarily. They're going to say, "Oh, should we go fishing the weekend?"
No, I think it takes a certain type, but it takes a certain type of male, doesn't it? It's sort of like you've got to love the outdoors, and you're getting your hands dirty, and the different textures that you're going to feel, the different environment you've got to learn to survive, and everything else. I think not all boys are into it, are they? It's kind of.
But now now the ball's moving with it. Rolling with it, you've created a base there, and you hopefully you can expand on that now through the base we created. Yeah. But
maybe even that, they're starting to do. I don't know the conversation that you had with Bev, but they're starting to do these women only weekends and organise things for tuition and that. Maybe they do a junior one, bring some girls in and that. Get the ball rolling. I think it'd be fantastic for the industry. I really don't see why not.
You see many women on your courses?
No, not yet. No.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But they're more than welcome if there's any girls.
No, absolutely, and the photography side of it as well. There's equally as many women that want to use a camera as well. It's So away from all that stuff, then, Pete. I remember seeing you on was it Discovery Channel or Disney Channel doing some fishing around the world.
Fishing and that, I've done a few bits. Originally, I was on Discovery on the Matt Hayes' programme, so I was the carp expert on there.
Yeah, that's right.
That come about. I'd done a few little DVD pilots and that, and Matt was like, "Oh, I want you to be the carp expert on my."
Did you send the pilots to Matt then? Or?
No, I saw him at the same sort of thing, this kind of proactive thing. So anybody out there want to do media things, you've got to be proactive. You've got to put it in front of these people. So again, at the NEC, I'd done a little pilot video and showed him, and he was like, "Oh, I like that, isn't it?" But you're showing them that you can do it. So
what was in the pilot then?
Just fishing, but it was like actually fast cut stuff. So it was really, really original. So it was a predecessor to a DVD that I ended up doing with Matt and Frank Warwick. But it was the first time in fishing that anyone had put hard, fast cut music to it, so drum and bass and stuff like that. Right. Now what you see with all the Nash Urban banks and everything, I was the first person to do that. Yeah.
Did Matt like that then?
He just knew that it was original, know. He knew that I was interested in that. I was interested in the cameras. As I am sitting in here, I'm looking at all your kit as much as I'm enjoying being as a guest. You get what I mean? I'm looking at the rigs and everything else, and jealous of the equipment that you've got, So that's just me. So when you're talking to someone like that, because Matt was quite interested in the production and directing of things and that as well, So he's a very good photographer, Matt Hayes is. If you look at some of his stuff, it's
So did he play a big part in the directing of those programs then?
Yeah, he was there when I'd done my bits. So it was over a couple of days doing a load of tips for the series. I think it was Total Fishing 2006, but what was really interesting is it ran on Discovery for a couple of years, going round and round in loops, and then Quest picked it up, and it might even still be on there now, because I often get messages, or have done over the years, of people saying, "I've just seen you on telly," because they were the last ones that they ended up doing, I think he would have brought me in even further, I think he was even thinking about maybe directing a couple of carp programs that I was going to be running, but fishing at the time suddenly went out of everything. There was a lot in the BBC, almost anti-hunting, anti-fishing, and it all started disappearing away. But then
is that what happened? Was it?
Yeah, there was definitely a campaign of all programs. It went off all terrestrial television, didn't it?
Yeah,
and then you saw all the Korda stuff and that through DVDs, Rocket. I think they did, and YouTube and that all Rocket. And then all of a sudden they've started to creep back to it, haven't they? And now it's become quite popular again. You've got mainstream programs going on,
Yeah, Jeremy Wade stuff and Monster Carp and All Stars. We do some stuff. I just assumed it was because there was so much more going out on, digital platforms.
I think there was
stuff.
A bit of an anti-thing they kind of associated with that. With there's people at the head of these television stations. Like, do we want to be promoting that? But then I think they started to realise more and more that a lot of these programs are about being outside, being in the environment, and respect for the waterways, and just generally enjoying the environment. If you haven't got those people doing that, you know.
I mean, I think I take you for granted a little bit because I've seen you around a lot, right? And it was only when we were talking the other week, and it was, you know, you were talking. What was the name of the program where you went to the 3 different countries?
Kingfishers, yeah.
It was called Kingfishers.
Yeah, that was on National Geographic.
Yeah, I watched it. I watched it, and it was like, do you know, it was only when we were like talking, it's like, yeah, crikey, yeah, I remember that. So, how did you get into that? So
that was bizarre. That was a really bizarre thing to happen in the sense of this was when I was working for Free Spirit. And my journey home from Free Spirit was always a problem because I had to travel right across Colchester. You couldn't pick further points, go through all the traffic in the evening. So in the end, what I started to do a lot of the time was plan a couple of phone calls for the way home. So I had a bit of a mobile office while I was driving. And I just got the other side of Colchester. It was in the winter and it was pitch black. And the phone rang and it come up like caller ID, not there, but that was quite common for some reason on my van system. And a guy come on there and he said, "Hi there, is that Pete Castle?" And I was like, yeah. And he goes, "I'm a representative for National Geographic, but I'm working with ITV. Your name's come up. Would you be interested in being part of the programme?" Well, I honestly thought it was one of my mates. The way it was said, I nearly went, "Yeah, come on."
Yeah, I'm waiting. Who is this?
Yeah, and it kind of went a bit like, and I was a little bit hesitant. I was like, "Come on," and he started sort of talking and that, and he said, you know, and I was like, "Go on and tell me more." And it was like, "Yeah, would you be interested?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "It's going to be quite a tricky process. You're going to have to do like a Skype interview and everything else. But this is the format. We're taking 30 people from around the world. We're making 10 programs, so groups of 3, and you'll be going to different destinations. We don't know if you get through. We want to bring people to do carp fishing in the UK." So that went on. I'd done a Skype interview. That went all really well. And he was like, "Well, we're going to come there in December, like to carp fish." And I was like,
dear.
"Oh no! Like, you want to represent carp fishing on a global program?" They'd even told me, like, National Geographic goes out to 440 million households worldwide. You know,
only a few. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just households. So like people watching that. So this is going to be a huge international project. You're the representation of carp fishing, you know, we want to come in December. So I went to town on it. I just couldn't have done any more. I sorted them out, all their own kit. They had their own rods with their names on them. That's how, all brand new kit, bivvies, alarms.
Free Spirit stuff.
All Free Spirit rods, all Delkims, everything. All the companies, Dial Reels, all the companies are really, really supportive.
Yeah.
And they all sorted out, and I wanted them to have all brand new gear, all the best gear that, you know, you could get. The fishing lake, so over at the nunnery, they were due a restocking program in the spring. They brought that forward. They spent 20 grand on fish, like to make sure there was plenty of stock in them. Wow. Yeah, they done. Everybody pulled out all the stops. Now, when you got to the actual program, and this, actually, I'd done a preliminary interview, and that was quite weird. They wanted to fish and everything else, and they had some photographers there as well. And I said to the guy, "Can you give me a business card?" To maybe get the shots and stuff like that. And he had a couple of assistants with the lamps and that. When he gave me a business card on there, he had picture of David Attenborough and Usain Bolt on his business card. You know, these are the people, because they work for National Geographic and that. I was like, yeah. It was really funny.
Yeah.
It was proper, real deal. And then when I was the first one, so they bring the crew and everything and the anglers and stuff, and it was just bizarre because they probably had an 8-person crew. I know Ali and that work with that now, but at the time, for me, it was like a lot of people, a lot of tripods, a lot of expensive equipment, and they really didn't understand it to the point of where they make all this noise, right, you walk backwards and forwards, you do this, so they're setting up all the shots, and then it's like, right, now you can catch a fish. Yeah. But they've just completely ruined the lake, you know. But luckily there was a bit of a wind on the water. The temperature was probably about 10 or 12 degrees, which wasn't too bad in December. The fish had gone in, and there was some original stock, yeah. And they played ball, and the Costa Rican guy, so he had never been outside of Costa Rica before, so he's in the UK carp fishing in the winter. And I reckon his rod had only been out there for a couple of hours, and he caught a really nice dark old scaly one, you know. It was one of the original fish, and it was just like, here we go, you know.
What would have happened with that? I mean, would they just stayed there indefinitely until they got what they wanted?
No, we was on a time scale. All the flights were booked because we were going straight out of there to Miami, to then get an internal flight down to Key West.
So if you didn't catch anything,
it
they would have canned. But 20 grand's worth of fish.
Yeah, with the original, wasn't that? And what happened was the American guy hadn't caught anything, and literally on the last hour he caught one of those stocked fish. It was like 10 or 12 pound or something. So, and it made it that he had actually caught something, because then he was saying, actually, I didn't get this carp fishing thing at all, that you catch them and you put them back. And what we had some interesting conversations off camera. What I started to understand was Key West and the place where we were in Costa Rica are two of the best fisheries in the world. They just are, from what I understand. Not that I know a huge amount about those types of fishing, but they've got fish on every possible level, on every possible scale, from great big sharks to small nursery areas that you can go and catch on ultralight gear and stuff like that. We haven't got that here anymore. You know, we haven't got that in our seas and that around us. So I was trying to explain the popularity of things like carp fishing is we can get that fix, we can enjoy our time on the bank, but we have to respect it. We can't eat those fish and do that. They have to go back for future generations and everything else. But they really got it. They loved the carp care stuff, and they loved the respect we had for it. You know,
was the so was the carp fishing section on that? Did the company have to spend a lot more time and effort to make sure that particular location, that segment of the show was? Did they spend a lot more time on that?
No, I just think it was just the preparation, you know.
Did they have to prepare for the other sections of the show as much as they did for the...
Yeah, no, it was alien to them. It was extremely well organised. You had basically the 10 programmes going on at the same time, so there were different directors. So they were all working off a similar script. I said to the film crew straight away, including the director, I'm interested in this stuff. If you need me to carry boxes or cameras, or I played that role.
So you were a runner as well as
I really enjoyed that.
Director.
When they were setting up, because when we were in Costa Rica, they had to set up little mini studios in their hotel room and things like that, with the blurred backdrops and all the lighting similar to what you've got going on in here. So I was like, watching everything go up, and you want me to help, but I like stuff like that. I'm really interested in it, of the different takes.
And the show, was it successful?
Yes. In the UK it was alright. For some reason Italy was really popular, because it was a global thing, as in European countries, but also like Asia, for watching what was going on mostly in the Northern Hemisphere. They absolutely loved it. They reckon their ratings were up like 300% or something. Wow.
They're just more fascinated by that. It's not something that
it's a bit like us watching an exotic program, maybe in Asia, where we're fascinated with the cultural difference of what's going on and a different interpretation of it, But it was really, really popular. And then that run on a loop really for a year or so on National Geographic, and then very recently it's been picked up by Disney, so that's out. And that, again, I'm still getting messages come through, hey Pete, I've just been watching you.
That's cool though, isn't it?
It's very bizarre. Every program I've been on, I've not been on a lot, so I've been on Discovery, National Geographic and Disney, which are great big platforms, but also they're on little loops, so it keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah, that's keep going forever probably. I like what you said about the production queue. Do you know, I find it hard to talk tonight. Yeah. I've done a few podcasts recently. The production crew, they said to you, have you been to a certain place in this country?
Okay, yeah.
And it was,
well, they basically they phoned me probably about 6 months afterwards and said, we really like that carp fishing. Can we come? Can we have a go at going fishing? So I set that up again on the nunnery. I spoke to people there, and they have a bit of a close season syndicate anyway, because they have a few problems over there, people trying to poach and that, so they have a few anglers on. So I managed to bait an area, and they come, and they between three of them, they had 9 fish. One of them had a 30, and it was like really cool. And they really liked it. I'd done a barbecue and everything else. And while they were there, it was one of the guys said to me, he was going, have you ever been to Vegas before? And I was like, no. And he's going, I've been to Vegas loads. And I was like, right. And he went, have you ever been to Bognor Regis before? And I was like, what? And he's going, I said, no. And he's going, I'm telling you now. He goes, I've been to Vegas loads of times, and Bognor is better than Vegas. And I was just like, what are you on about? And he's going, them adult weekends down there, they're just crazy. So anyway, he was persistent with it, because I'd shown them such a good time, and I laid it all on for them, barbecues, a bait. The bivvies were set up. Do you get what I mean? They just turned up, caught some nice carp, and went away. Got some photographs and that. So I took them up on it. Went down there, and we had We had a fairly wild weekend.
So it lived up to it.
It was pretty crazy. I was surprised. If anyone wants a crazy weekend, go and do one of them like 80s, 90s.
Yeah, and the promotion code is.
Yeah. No, but I was surprised. It was just funny as anything. I tell you what, I've really enjoyed down there, and you often get it if you go out in a local town with a group of lads or something, is that the group, when you start going late into the night, the group starts breaking up because people can't handle the pace, or are older or younger, or want more or less out of it. Some people don't like clubs, do they? They'd rather chat in bars and that. Well, when you're in Bognor, because there's so many hotels and you're in a group in a hotel, anybody can go home whenever they want, So people go home at 10 o'clock and others are out till 5 in the morning,
Yeah, so everyone's having a different experience there,
and I'd done a stag do there. My brother's stag do was there after my recommendation. But it's better than Vegas.
You watch stag do's in Bognor just skyrocket.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah.
We'd done that, and it was just exactly that. There was such a mixed group there that people could take as much as they want. That was a crazy weekend. Yeah, I think we done 5 o'clock in the morning Friday night, paintballing all day Saturday. 5 o'clock in the morning Saturday night, go-karting all day Sunday. It was just, come home with lots of bruises. And
I thought about that after I met you, actually. I have been to Bognor Regis, actually, on a stag weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, but we stayed at, there's a Butlins there, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what it is, yeah.
Oh, that's what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, I've been on that.
Have you?
Yeah, it was all right. Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, but all stag weekends are good, aren't they? That was in because when you said that, 2004, I think I went that. It was a few years ago.
Yeah, it's a few years ago.
Yeah. It was winter time, so it was a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good weekend.
It was a good week. Is it better than Vegas?
I've been to Vegas. I love the States.
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer Vegas, but it's good.
Yeah.
But it's a hard perspective because you normally enjoy yourself on a stag weekend.
It was nice for them guys. They looked after me. I'd looked after them. Do you get what I mean? It was a bit of a courtesy thing to them. No, it was good. It was a good laugh. It's nice to hang out with the lads. I miss that now, I'm not watching these programmes on TV or something they hark back from a year or two ago of some people walking into a bar, It might even be in a soap opera and you think, they're in a pub.
Yeah.
Look at them.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'll never complain about a boring pub again, just sitting in the corner of a pint, I just enjoy it. I just sit in there and just take that, everything that we took for granted that we loved,
For me personally, it's watching old football highlights and seeing stadiums full of people.
Yeah, like erupting
you think,
I can't watch sport at the moment. I can't watch football. It's just I didn't realise how much an impact the spectators had on everything, the spectacle.
This whole thing has highlighted to me, although I kind of realised it anyway with that that we are extremely social beings, aren't we? That we
we're tribal, aren't we? We need to be
connectivity.
Around. We do. Yeah.
I was even using that with the swimming with the old ladies and that, because I work from home. Going out in the morning, going doing a bit of swimming and saying good morning to people and interacting. Because my house is quite isolated and Mrs. went off to work and the kids had gone. It's kind of like there ain't a lot going on. Do you get what I mean? I think I was using some of that for just that interaction,
Yeah, I've I said to you as well. I've been hitting a lot of golf balls over lockdown, and I'm lucky. I live in the country, and I go out in the field and just spend 5 hours out there hitting golf balls. And you get all these dog walkers and stuff coming across the field, and you have a chat with all these people that you never knew
Suddenly,
before.
Look, there's someone, grab them quick, you're having a chat.
Unfortunately, the other night, I was getting a little bit tired, Pete, and I hit a golf ball, and it skewed off at 45 degrees and went straight through my next-door neighbour's greenhouse.
Oh, lovely. Did you run, or did you go and explain?
I mean, the noise was unbelievable, so I had to go round there. And, he's a lovely guy, comes to the door, and he said, I did think that you were practicing too much. And I said, but then I said to him, actually, I'm not just out there to hit golf balls. It's only when I'd done that, I thought about it. It's like, I wasn't just out there to hit golf balls. I'm out there to release myself from everything else.
From everything else,
and you just stood out there for hours just smashing golf balls. But actually, I like talking to myself and stuff, and it's pretty crazy, isn't it, when you're on your own? And it's just I just like that time, as well.
I meant to check. Did you get the video I sent you of old matey in his garden hitting golf balls?
That was good, wasn't it?
I said, I'm
not the only one.
I was like, so you're not alone, mate. And there was this video of same as Simon, guy practicing hitting golf balls into this net, and it's obviously got a hole or it's not attached at the bottom.
Straight through
it's gone straight through, and it's gone obliterated both patio doors.
Really?
In his own house, by the looks of it as well.
But but the whole meaning behind doing that stuff, it isn't just a sort of it's like we're trying to find ways to, stimulate ourselves and it's because you're so cooped up, you just can't.
I've been doing it with dog walks. My missus might have gone. I've done it in the morning. She's gone out at lunchtime, and I'm like, that dog could do a third walk, and she's like, it's going. You see, he loves walking as well, and you just see him like plodding along, just thinking, I'm done,
Yeah.
But it's me just trying to get a little bit of reality, It's like,
come on, we'll go for a 10th walk now, shall we?
Yeah. She's probably beasted him at lunchtime as well. She's a bit of a gym bunny and is missing all of that, so she'll march him,
Yeah.
And then he's like, 2 hours later, we're going again. You can see him like that.
He's like, no.
My friend's dog, he's getting older, right? And he said a few months ago he was taking it for a walk, and it started having a bit of a limp. You went, oh crikey, like the dog's like ill, so or the dog's he's stood on a fawn or something. Took it back to the house. As soon as he got back to the house, the dog was moving absolutely fine.
Yeah. Telling him, like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Injury.
Yeah.
I had a good one the other day. I took my dog out for a walk, and she hates the rain, like despises the rain. And we got halfway across to the fields. It's about 5 minutes from my house, and we got caught in just a pour down. We were soaked, and she just stopped. She's only a little dash hound, and she stopped, planted herself, looked at me, turned, and ran. Luckily, I had one of them retractable leads.
Cool, yeah.
And she's gone, and she did not stop sprinting until we got back to our front doorstep. And she just looked at me and went, I'm going indoors now.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm impressed she found a way home, actually.
Yeah. Your dog's got quite short legs as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So
well, same as you, but like, they're only meant to be walked 20 minutes a day. I'm doing hours, hour and a half.
Mine's interesting. It was kind of, we had a previous black Labrador, and the top of the range gun dog, all the history and that with it. And we got it from the same breeder, like when the other one sadly passed away. And it's just not the same dog. This one's, even my missus that was adamant that was the right one calls it shithead. It's just, considering it's a top of the range gun dog. Well, actually, I can never work out. He's either really thick or he's really clever. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
My mum is just really placid. She'll accept anything from anybody. She used to foster and all kinds of stuff. Actually, they ended up adopting 5 girls. That's how accepting they are of everything. And when we took the dog round there for the first time of an overnight or something, she said the next day, I'm never having that dog round there again. He's been on the back of the sofa taking the pictures off the wall. She's so accepting of everyone, He's like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the worrying thing is, if the dog's used to walking like 20 miles a day at the moment, I mean, it's going to expect that when we're back to normal, I guess, as well.
Normal,
Yeah. I didn't realise as well you were such a product developer as well. You mess around with you don't mess around. You come up with some good ideas, don't you?
Yeah, come up with a few.
Yeah.
Come up with a few over the years.
What's your best idea?
That
people know.
Well, sort of like for originality, and I actually won Product of the Year for like Angling Times and Improve Your Course Fishing. Most innovative product of the year was the Maggot Klip. Yeah, come up with that idea. That was actually in a dream, which was a bit bizarre. I'm kind of like, sort of spoke about this before, and I think it goes back to the schooling thing, I'm a proper dreamer. I think that was what was going on in the classes, that I'm half in a state of, here, consciousness, and half in a state of dream. So, but on the day that I was come up with the idea, I was using maggots. I was sewing them on, as a lot of people still do now, and it's a very good method for sewing them on with a needle and thread. But I was on a day session, everything was really mucky, I had maggot guts on my hands, and I'd just eaten some sandwiches, and sort of like, I don't know why, it was annoying me that day, and I'd fallen asleep in the chair in the afternoon, and in the dream I was putting them on the clip, and I was casting them out into the lake. But to add to the bizarreness of the dream, in the swim next to me was Paul McCartney from the Beatles. And probably about 3 years after the Maggot Klip was out, I found out that yesterday, the song
he
dreamt it, yeah. And it's the most recorded song by alternative artists ever. So it's been sung by more different people than any other song, It's kind of like
so the Maggot Klip was a big seller, and it had that connection with the dream, the Paul McCartney stuff as well. So it's like Paul McCartney. It's all
bizarre, yeah.
Isn't it strange how the brain puts all that stuff together?
Yeah, But literally, it was a nap. You know, I was there. Must have been 20 minutes, half an hour. You know, but soon as it was on in the dream, I was conscious already that it was something that I was going to think about when I woke up, because I knew it was a good idea. You know.
I find it strange that you dreamt about Paul McCartney with it. I mean, I knew that he dreamt that song, but you didn't know.
I didn't know that
in the first place. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, he was definitely in there.
He was
in the
there.
swim. He was in the swim next to me. I didn't even see him, but he was definitely there. You know, because I can remember thinking about it. It was just like, that was a really bizarre dream. But on top of it, why was he fishing? You know.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's why.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Maggot Klip was pretty successful, wasn't
Yeah.
it? And it done the job as well. I have to admit, right, I did use Maggot Klips a little bit, but not that often. Actually, we've reverted back to sort of science, sewing maggots back on again.
I think, personally, a lot of these things that I come up with, there are not better ways of doing it, but you know, for a harder carp, balancing the rig and everything else, I would sew them on myself if I was going for big carp. The reason that was created, if I was out with my children or I was fishing a runs water or something like that with maggots, you know, putting on little funnel web bags and catching doubles and 20-pounders, then it's very quick and easy to do it, you know.
Yeah.
I've got some other ideas at the minute that I'm playing about with.
Yeah, you've got an idea. Well, it's going to be coming out quite soon, isn't it?
It's an interesting thing. I'm going to show you something.
We're going to really piss off the audience.
We're going to really piss them off.
If they're still with us, I mean, hopefully they are.
Yeah.
I mean,
In this bag, this is a really funny thing, because in this bag, I had an idea I had a couple of years ago, and it's coming to fruition now. But when I met up with Simon on the bank, I said to him, I've got an idea that's going to revolutionise how people fish. And you laughed. You did actually laugh, didn't you? You was like, yeah, how many times have we heard that, you know? And then you opened it up and you had a look and you went, oh, yeah. Oh, you was pretty excited about it, huh?
Yeah. But we're not going to tell anyone what it is at the moment.
Oh, hang on. I was sitting there like, I was getting excited then.
No, we can't do that.
Can't.
Oh.
I'll get shot. I had permission to sort of say that there's something coming. But
wow.
Because...
But Korda are releasing it.
Korda are releasing it,
yeah. Kickers as well?
Yeah, that was a really interesting one. I had the idea, basically what happened with ready-made kickers is that I was making them from a shrink tube, called a shrink tube, because I still do now, do a lot of day fishing, and also I use a lot of fluorocarbon. So what I was doing was moulding the shapes of the kickers, putting them in different packets, you know, so I had different coloured ones, different length kickers. I even made like little whiffy pool ones, you know. So yeah, that was a product that Korda didn't do originally. But the idea was put out to other people, and they kind of stole it and run with it.
How frustrated were you that you've come up with an idea? I mean,
Very.
That happens a bit, does it? That you come up with an idea, and
Yeah.
I can see this, but other people can't necessarily see it
Yeah,
straight away.
I think you hear it sometimes in the music industry, don't you? Bands will say they've been singing that music for 10 years, and all of a sudden they're top of the charts, and they're like, hang on a second. So I don't think that the people could see the future how I could see it, you know, at the time. So the people that were looking at it just were in a mindset that that's how they do rigs, and how would you change it? But I didn't make this idea to try to sell to the company to make. I was using it. I was actually making these things at home and really seeing advantage to it. I didn't need a cooker to steam the things down. I could just pick different things.
No, they're handy.
And now, you know, it's like everybody from you know, not just Korda, from all companies now will make these shapes and forms and stuff. And I had different coloured ones and different shapes and stuff, you know. So
the colouring stuff as well was
no, that brighter stuff. But I mean the browns and the greens and stuff I was doing.
I do like the different colours as well. It's like, you know, we're particular about what colour hook baits and stuff we use at times. And I mean, you might as well make use of that as well and match it all up. But no, I mean,
it's an interesting one that nobody knows that it was me that come up with the idea. Probably 3 or 4 years before it even come onto the market from other companies, but I know where it come from because the ideas. Is it
so?
Really.
I mean, so you're sponsored by us, and you know, so obviously, you know, if you've got an idea, you just, you know, you come to us and we decide, whether it's going to be released or not. But is it quite frustrating as well at times that you can come up with quite a lot of stuff and it doesn't necessarily always get that recognition?
There's loads in the market. There's a lot of parallel thinking going on. So other companies, it's not always like that one was an idea that was taken from me, but other companies are parallel thinking about stuff. So an example would be I gave Korda an idea for a bait pole, so a floating one, it's actually a single system, but a bit like the Bushwhacker that's going around at the minute and very, very popular. And I'm going to get one myself, because I think it's a really good device. So that's been sitting in somebody's desk, are they going to do it, aren't they going to do it? And then another company comes up with it. But that's happened loads and loads of times, for me. So, yeah, I understand that the product development process is longer than I realise. I come up with the idea and I want that to come out, and they get frustrated with me, But I've had to push this one along a little bit. It's like, come on, it's a good idea. Let's get this going, and that's good. It's coming now. So let's hope. I'm using it. I caught a few fish on it the other day.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. It was like that. Well, that works, doesn't it?
Yeah, and your 45,000 plus Instagram people see that stuff as well, don't they? And it's getting a bit of coverage straight away, isn't it?
But they don't know that I'm catching on that. A few friends have seen it,
Right.
And they're like, whoa, that's going to change things.
I mean, is it important to you to always keep your mind working with that as well? You do, or I mean, it's a bit like Frank as well. Frank's a bit like that as well, isn't it? He's very
creative. He draws and that, doesn't he? I've got something here with you. 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, he's the same, isn't he? He always needs to be thinking outside the box and finding new.
So this is an original Korda.
Yeah, they sold a lot of those.
Yeah, but I think that was a Frank's design, and that I think he had an impact on it. Yeah,
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, I think he did have an impact on the design.
Frank's had a bit of an impact on a lot of stuff. There's another one, Tobe, from Frank.
Yeah, they're cool, them.
Yeah.
I was never very good with them. I did have a go.
I would be horrendous to start off with. I mean, they'd all be in the margins to start off with. But
there's a proper technique with it, isn't
there? There is. Yeah. But once you get the release right, and I mean, it's a mainstream bit of kit nowadays, isn't it? And
the controllers is an interesting one. I caught a big impact on these ones here, and I know these designs have been around for a little while anyway, because I was with TFG with the Matt Hayes thing anyway, so I know the development of this shape. Interestingly, this shape is actually an Italian product. It's a sinker, so they make these as a sinker to go behind trawling for trout and stuff like that, so the different weights of sinking. So initially that was where the company was approached to create this shape as a floating one. But the colour is the interesting point, is that TFG went down the route of trying green ones and blue ones and stuff like that, which you couldn't see, and then they went with a similar opaque white, but that was for a visual reason. So then Korda brought out controllers which are a similar shape, but they done theirs green with a red top on it, which I didn't particularly like. I was still kept going back to the TFG ones because I had a good visual, a better visual than I did on the green ones. Although the shape and that, this shape is actually fantastic for floater fishing because it's really anti-tangle. They don't half cast well, and they on these bigger ones they can act with a bolt effect and that as well, But what I started to really sort of like understand and really want to push was what I started to see more and more on the TV, watching wildlife documentaries and stuff like that. They kept using this phrase called counter shading, and I'd heard it mentioned loads of times. And when people are talking about something in conversations and they're not explaining what it is that they're talking about, they're just using the vocabulary. So I started to look at it more and more, and basically counter shading is a scientific theory, fact, whatever you want to call it, that everything in nature really is using counter shading. So whether it's a pond skater or a roach, if you think about, or even a carp itself, or you think about a rabbit or even a cat to some extent, depending on its colour, it has a dark top and a pale belly. And the reason for that is because it's anti-predatory. If something comes from underneath, it can't see it. If it comes from the top, then it's camouflage to do with the context of it. And now we do this in zig fishing as well. A lot of the time, the guys put the darker zig at the bottom, so the darker piece of foam and the yellow bit on top, so they're reverse counter shading.
Right.
They've probably not used that scientific term or thought about it like that, but they're silhouetting looking up to the sky, and then they're colorizing looking down to the dark bottom, so they're making the thing obvious. So that was where I really pushed it, you know, in the meetings that we had with these controllers, to try to explain that the green ones that they had was actually, you know, creating problems. And I could visually see that because I float a fish so much. I could see the problems that you were having. You couldn't see it yourself, plus the fish were attacking it because it's more silhouetted.
They're sort of like it's food.
And sticks and everything else.
Yeah.
They visually can see it, you know. You know, I'll give you an example. In the spring, a couple of years ago, I put a load of floaters out going down, and the fish were coming up and missing the floaters. And what I noticed, there was a dark leaf going down with the floaters, and every time they come up, they were hitting the dark leaf. I put a dark hook bait on, like nearly a black pop-up on, and I caught a fish straight away, you know. They can see that a lot more than they can see a pale colour, you know.
Is that dependent on, you know, different light as well?
Of course, yeah, that's going to come into it, and the depths that they're prepared to come out of, because some fish will come out of quite extreme depths to take a float, as other ones, they need to be cruising along on the surface to take it, you know. It depends. It's almost like the habitual nature of that lake and a certain time of year and stuff like that.
But as a general rule, the dark silhouette on the surface is more identifiable to them.
Yeah, and then so you're doing the reverse with this, because you know, like for years I've been using these kind of like pen controllers. I think this is one out of an old one, out of an Angling Times or something, but lots of companies make them.
They were always that colour, weren't they?
Yeah,
as well?
So they're sitting dark
so green
in the water,
green and orange.
But what you notice that they attack these, they come and suck on the bottom of them. They can see that visually more than your pop up, you know. So you know, I've even thought sometimes about like whipping a hook onto there or something, because I've had more takes off the controller than I have off my hook bait. So it says the visual or something like that. Something in the Korda range, if I could promote something a second, is that they do these, and I know other companies do a similar shape in that as well, but they do these big sort of bulky things like that. But there's a tiny little 5 gram one here that I developed with Tom Dove, and it's really overlooked. Now, I've floater fished all my life, you know, and I'd class myself as a very experienced floater angler, and I think this is the best controller that the industry does. And the reason why I think it's the best controller is because when you're floater fishing, you're catapulting mixers out. They often drift back to the margin that you're fishing in, so it can become really close range work. But this is a 5 gram controller that's aerodynamic. You can cast it 30 or 40 yards. Makes very little noise when it lands in there. It's anti-tangle. It's anti-visual because of the counter shading thing. As a stalking floater fishing angler, this thing is absolutely awesome. I've caught so many fish off it. And it's just totally overlooked, because a lot of these guys are going down the route of anchoring up, you know, they're fishing at range, they're spomming or whatever, you know. But as a stalking angler, rather than using something like this that often tangles, often the fish attack and this, that and the other, this little 5 gram one is absolutely awesome, you know.
I mean, it looks like the old, you know, remember the old inline leads with it's sort of based around the same
similar kind of thing, concept, and they were quite good at anti-tangle, weren't they? Because they've got nothing to frap up on. And it's just a little thing that I know when I'm doing my tutorials, and I do a little section on floater fishing, a lot of people say, I didn't even know Korda done them, you know. But it's definitely, you know, I've got these in my, you know, just main tackle box, not in my floater fishing bucket, because it's great. It's just, you know, the other day, we're in early spring here. The other day we had a couple of days of 20 degrees and people were putting shots on Instagram of seeing fish. Well, I've got this in my tackle box, my main tackle box all the time. I can put a pop-up on, dark pop-up on, as I said about the visual thing, and I can cast that out.
It's really, really quick and easy, isn't it? Yeah, you don't need all your floater gear or anything, do you?
No.
You just cast like one of those out.
People use singles, don't they, for like chod fishing and, you know, everything else that they do, whacking them about. You know, if the fish have suddenly come up on the surface and they're nudging the odd leaf and milling about and that, you don't even need your floater gear. But you've got your pop-ups, didn't you? You just put one of them on.
Talking about temperature, you were talking about a term called, was it convection?
Convection, yeah. It's a really interesting area that I think is totally overlooked in carp fishing. It's very, very rarely written about. People go on about the moon phases and all this, that and the other, and I think convection is probably the single most influential thing of why you catch fish and when a lake is building up and crescending into really kicking off, you know. And by that I mean convection can go both ways, so the rise in temperature and the dissipation of temperature. And I think that carp, as cold-blooded animals, really react to that rise in temperature. So I'm talking about over a period of a couple of days, and it happened last week. We had 9 or 10 degrees for about 3 weeks. Spring was sort of starting to spring, but it hadn't really come. And then over 3 days, it's roared up to 23 degrees, you know. Now, I know loads of lakes, and I've seen Instagram going mad, where all of a sudden it's really kicked off, you know. So loads of carp have been caught as a result of that temperature gauge. Now, I'm saying is, if that temperature now held for the next 2 weeks at 20 degrees, and then it dropped down to 9 degrees, it went the opposite way, you would see the opposite. You would see the fish really active and being caught, and then all of a sudden it would just stop like a stone, you know. And I can see it. I've got fish in my pond in my garden, which I feed every day, and it has a massive reaction to them, you know, that drop in temperature, sudden drop in temperature, especially like rain and stuff like that. What I'm saying is that can happen any time of the year. So
right.
It doesn't matter if it's in the winter and it's 10 degrees, 10 degrees, 10 degrees, and then it's 3, and then 3, that drop will kill the lake. But if you've done the opposite, if it's 3 degrees, 3 degrees, 3 degrees, then all of a sudden you've got 2 or 3 days of 10 degrees. That incline will be where they suddenly become active, you know. It's almost like that downturn makes their metabolism switch off, you know.
Yeah.
But we can see it for other animals. We can see it in ourselves, you know.
Do you think that switch in temperature is like instant as well, or it takes...
I think it takes time because of the terrestrial environment. But the convection part of it is not just a temperature change. So you think about it with wind. So I was thinking about this the other day. If you had a swimming pool and the water temperature was 10 degrees and the outside the terrestrial degree was 20 degrees, yeah? So at night it's at 0 and then it comes up to 20 degrees. So that pool during the day has got time to heat up with no wind on it. Or you had a big fan on the side of the swimming pool. When it hits 20 degrees with that fan blowing onto the lake like you do with windy conditions, you know, that swimming pool would warm up a lot quicker with the wind pounding onto the water, wouldn't it? And that's what I think happens a lot with the convection part of it, is that, you know, classic mild southwesterly wind we all go crazy for, and that's when the carp are being caught. But that's where the heat is really being pushed into the water, you know. It's being pushed in, you know. So you've got 20 degrees and a 20 mile an hour wind, but if you had 20 degrees and it was flat calm, it wouldn't penetrate the water as much, you know, and really get the fish active. And it happens. You think about it when you're fishing in the autumn and all of a sudden it swings round to a northeasterly and it's bitter and you get that real cut into the lake where it's real drop in temperature. It's just almost like the worst possible fishing conditions you could be in, you know. Or you see it with rain, didn't you? Sometimes a rain front comes through and the temperature drops from 25 degrees to 15 degrees.
Do you think you can counter that with finding shallower water as well?
Yeah. So, or creating more active things. I'm writing to using natural baits and stuff like that. So as things are slowing down, you know, you suddenly start to change into something that's going to stimulate them a bit more, make it a little bit more active. You like
using natural baits, don't you?
Just the other day, so I took the kids fishing, float fishing, mentioned that earlier, just catching little bits, and we had some frozen maggots, so they used, you know, half of a pint, so we had half a pint left. When I got home, I gave them to my carp in my pond, and they went absolutely crazy. You know, I mean, they like a pellet, they like a crumb boilie, but you chuck a few handfuls of maggots in there, they almost turn predatory, you know. And actually using that description, I've got 3 ponds that are linked together, so they're waterfalls that come over, and every year they're doing it in a minute. We have frogs in the top one, and I bypass it so the tadpoles can get established without rolling down the waterfalls and being eaten by the carp. But sometimes that pond drops so much I have to fill it up with a hose. And last year I forgot that the hose was running, so all the tadpoles are going over the top. Them carp with tadpoles in that pond and that, they turn into predators. They're stalking through them pads and that, hunting them, you know. They're all just suddenly, there's 15 carp in there, and they just suddenly all change. Dorsals are up, pushing each other out of the way. They really turn it on. When they want the natural, it's a totally different ball game to.
Well, there's been a lot spoken about, live bait as well, and for carp, you know. Yeah. And you know, we don't realise how predatory they are, do we? Really?
When I was a kid, this happened twice. There was zander in a lake where we used to carp fish, and there's people used to use like half a roach for the zander. And 2 years in a row, this happened really bizarre. And it was a really cold, horrible day. Nobody caught anything. There was a carp caught on the roach head. and then there was a zander caught on like a yellow popper, the opposite of what it was. And then a year later, the same thing happened on a very, very similar day. It was just nothing was caught. You know, people were trying zigs in the winter, tried everything. And the people that were zander fishing caught a carp, and the people that were carp fishing caught a zander.
How weird is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really made you think. It was like, right, what are we doing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you good at, you know, retaining that information as well? And I mean, could you take that information that you learnt on that day into your fishing now?
Yeah, when people do, they use tins of tuna and that in their mixers and think they're crushing fish up, and there's fish meal and the bait. And but when I was growing up, I was very active with float fishing with worms and stuff like that. So when the boilie revolution coming around and the hair rig, because at the time people were still tying the boilie to the bottom of the hook kind of thing, you know, the hair wasn't even separate. I still kept dabbling back into it because I was catching more fish. They'd put their buzzer out, you know, and I'd be using my monkey climber or swing tip at the time, or quiver tip, or whatever. I was decided to fish it with a worm on or something, and I was catching 6 carp and they were catching 4. But that was as much to do with me being active. Do you get what I mean in my approach? But I've never lost that. I know that. You know, there's a time to use a boilie, and I use boilies, and I'll feed boilies and everything else. But there's a time when you're sitting there and you're thinking, the fish are in front of me, nothing's happening. You know, what can I do to make it active? You know.
So what differences will we notice between your fishing in spring, summer, and winter? Then, I mean, have you got, you know, is it all dependent on the day, or you know, if you got?
There isn't a set thing for me.
No.
I think that's it. That's why I like my full armoury. If I have got, I've been carrying a lot recently, pots of worms. They seem to last really, really well. Literally months. I can keep them in the van. So if
do you bait with worms as well? Do you just
not
use them
so much. Yeah, I'm sort of trying to get my hook bait and that to stand out.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But it happened the other day. So there was a mixed bag. So there was quite some small carp in the lake, and I put a 20mm hook bait on to stop any small ones, and I hadn't had a run, and I changed to a smaller hook bait with a chopped up worm on it, and I think I had 5 in an hour. It was just so instant, you know. And then I stopped. I was like, I can't catch these. You know, they were like sort of 6 or 8 pound. I can't catch these anymore. I've got to try and catch a bigger one. So I went back to it, you know, with a 20mm just straight hook bait. But it was kind of interesting how reactive that was, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the size of the hook bait, it was just the worm, and you know, it's just natural, and it was what they wanted, you know.
I mean, it's an expensive bait if it's the way certain people, you know, people use them nowadays, but it's just such an attractive bait, isn't it? It's
so natural to them. It's probably coming out, well, it comes out the banks and the floods and that, they recognise it, don't they?
Of course they do, yeah.
I don't know whether you know this, but Charles Darwin, that come up with the theory of evolution, the origin of a species book and all of that. So he wrote all of that, and then for the last 30 years of his life, that's what he studied was the worm. He believed that it was the most influential species of animal that had ever existed on the planet. Basically, that they're the way that they treat the environment of, you know, taking the leaf litter down and composting it has like changed the landscape forever for all animals, you know, and it's because of the worm that's there. So he found it extremely fascinating.
Wow. We got Charles Darwin in this podcast.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That.
Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah. You were saying with like floater fishing, you like doing a bit of floater fishing, and the reaction of other anglers sometimes to, you know, taking away a surface caught fish versus a bottom.
I like all carp fishing. I respect everybody. I see bits of bait boats, rowing boats, echo sounders, you know, like I said, the guy in France getting runs of a bait boat. If that what makes him happy, I'm happy with it. Where I get a little bit funny with people is when they judge me, you know, for the type of fishing that I do, because I can catch them off the top, and I think a lot of the people that can't catch them off the top, they get a bit frustrated. They start going, you know, that don't count. Or I've heard some most bizarre things where I've gone on a warpath, you know. I'm a proper endurance person, so I can handle the heat, I can handle the winter. You know, when I was at school, running wise, cross country and that, I was the fastest person in the school when I was at school. When I was 13, I could beat the 16-year-olds when I was 13, and that was mostly for endurance. I don't care, do you get what I mean? I'll just keep going. So if I've got to climb up trees and I'm covered in mozzie bites and I'm being sunburnt and everything else, I'll just keep going. So I get a bit offended by that I'm working that hard to try and catch a fish off the top, and then when I catch one, and then you go and see some people later on and they're standing there with their burger in their hand and their can of beer going, yeah, but that don't really count, does it? You know, and they'd be using their measuring sticks, you know, to cast a spot, which is fine within itself, but it's like I actually equally get that, you know, they're sort of trap setting and sitting back and kicking back and chatting, and which is great, but I'm not going to turn around and say, well, that one don't really count, does it? It's
so weird. It's so weird.
I find it a little bit like people are always saying the fish that I've caught are great, you know, this old English thing that's probably not English is a you know, the one to catch because I sat there through pain and blood and sweat and tears, but the fish that you catch are wrong. I don't understand that, you know.
It's fish on the bottom with the men, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, but all of that, it doesn't make any sense to me, you know. When I'm going that hard, you know, I'm up early in the morning before first light, watching the bubbles as they're changing their depth coming out of the water, really reading it and feeding them and, you know, understanding their behaviour to the point of where, you know, a koi guy explained this to me once. He said, if you watch them really carefully in the koi pond, then every fish feeds differently, you know. Every one has got its own character. Some come over the top, some come bolt upright, some feed through taste, some feed through sight. So as a floater angler, you're able to watch all of these fish all the time. And I'm talking on hard syndicates and that as well sometimes. You're able to watch their behaviour to the point of where I've literally been in, you had the sun reflected in my face, so you can't really see. And I've had a take and I've known what fish it is before I've got it in because of the way that it took my floater, you know, because I've watched them that much out of the trees and everything else, you know.
You said you pre-baited a lake on.
Crazy story.
Yeah, go on.
So I this was when I was at college before I went to uni. So I come up with the idea of pre-baiting with floaters. So I was buying sacks of floating pellet. And then because I was going to college and I had a motorbike at the time and they had a closed season there, so you could do it without anybody realising, and because I had a short little window, nobody really twigged what was going on. So I started feeding them, but sometimes when I was going to the bay the fish weren't there, so what I decided to do was change it into like a real psychological term of conditioning process. So I was balling up the pellets, just put a little bit of lake water with them, left them for a little while, balling them up, and then I was throwing the balls of pellets into this bay. Now what was happening was sometimes the fish would come around the corner and I was throwing it at them, you know, and they would spook off out the bay. But after about 2 weeks of doing this, they suddenly realised that the balls landing into the bay was a dinner bell, you know. So I've got photographs like the 3 big fish that are in there. There's Pele Wander and another one called the Dragon, and I hadn't, you know, proper hard syndicate fish. I had them nearly feeding out my hands. That's how confident I got them. So I'd done that for 3 months, and then it was a very strange story where just before the season opened on June the 16th, I had an invitation to go to China. So this would have been 1995, 96. And it was a bit of an opportunity of a lifetime to travel all around China. We had a mad trip for like 3 months, went in between on the Silk Road between Tibet and out in Mongolia, it just was like, it was a mad adventure, but all of the pre-baiting on this lake had all gone out the window. So when I come back, it was straight off to university, literally had a few days and I was gone. But the great thing with university is that they break up beginning of June, you know, probably don't go back till October, do they? It's a great time. So got my syndicate ticket, everything else, started for June the 16th, and lo and behold, them fish remembered. So a whole year had passed, nobody had taken advantage of it, to the point of top rod on there is, well, even now, is 30, 35 fish in a year, you know. I had 89 out of there in 3 months.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Off the top.
Off the top, yeah.
So were they...
The big one, I'll just say this story, the big one, the Dragon, I had it off the top. There's the fish that everybody wanted, I had it off the top, and then the next day I had them feeding again, and it was there. And there were 6 people standing behind me that wanted to catch that fish, and I was pulling it out of its mouth. Every time it tried to take it, I was going like that. No, going, that's just crazy. And I was going, well, I caught it yesterday, you know. We'll just use him as a decoy coming around and we'll catch some of the others, you know. It was the most sought after fish in East Anglia at one point, I think, and I was using it as a decoy. Yeah, it was a bit funny.
Could you do that every day on there then with the floaters? I mean, did it need to be? It needed to be the right conditions.
Yeah, right conditions to some extent.
Yeah.
There was a lot of wildlife on there, so they even sort of cottoned onto it a little bit once I started getting into open water. But again, it's like endurance, but it's preparation. It's a bit like the winter thing: keeping warm, keeping dry. In the summer, so a nice big sun hat, covering yourself up, sunblock, rehydrated food. You know, I burn food quickly, so having, you know, supply of bananas and biscuits and stuff like that to keep things that are really easy to eat, keep yourself going. You know, nice big 2-litre bottle of water. Sometimes when I write into my floater fishing, I'm using my bivvy and my night session stuff as a camp. Sometimes I will not even put my rods out, even though I've got fish in my swim. I'm planning for the next morning. I'm planning to get my head down. You know, I've left them taken off the top at last light, and I know at 4 o'clock in the morning I can get them back going again, you know. So I'll just use it as a base camp somewhere to get freshened up, get everything all sorted out, ready to go, and then I'm off again, you know, because you can have little windows in floater fishing like you can on the bottom. You know, they could be up at first light till 6 in the morning, from 4 till 6, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Or they're only taking that period. You see them all day, but they won't take, you know.
Yeah, but a lot of us just don't want to sort of use all of our time to its true potential, do we? Either it's easier to sort of just sit around and wait for the time when everything changes, and you know, rather than you know, adapt to what's actually going on.
I think that's the difference. There's a lot of it's trap setting, isn't it? Whereas I'm always trying to take it to them. I'm always trying to look at, you know, even if I'm trap setting as well, it's not criticism, I'm doing that, but it's like I'm always watching, there's a set of bubbles halfway out, you know. It's like, and I'll lock it on a tree or something, then all of a sudden the bubbles come up half a foot to the left, or that's a fish, do you get what I mean? I ain't going to sit there and have 3 rods out in open water, even if I've, you know, put all, which I rarely do, but the marker and the clip and everything, I'm not going to wait for that fish to go there. I'm going to take it to the fish. So it's just me, you know. So
you're essentially always like casting to showing fish, or
it's just that activity.
Yeah. And I guess certain conditions it makes it a little bit easier as well, doesn't it, for that sort of fishing as well?
Trust my judgment in it. Like I say, with the floater fishing, if they're in a bay, they take there, and I trust that on the bottom as long as I can get a drop. So because I've been doing that for so long, I can cut, even with a funnel web bag on, I like doing that kind of fishing. I can put the rod out and just, you know, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of like, I got a drop.
Yeah.
It's not weed, that'll do, you know. Yeah, ultimately you want a real bang, but I'm not prepared to lead all around the swim to find that. I've already found the fish and they're there, you know.
And keeping it as quiet as possible, and not...
Yeah, slack lines, just if they're in there doing their own thing, whether it's on naturals or maybe someone's bait that put in last week, whatever it was, if they're just in there doing that, I just want them to carry on doing that. If I've spent the time and the energy climbing out of trees and walking around and around to find them doing that, then I just want them to carry on doing that.
And when you found them like that, would you be more worried about visual attraction or smell, sensual attraction?
A bit of both. And it depends what type of lake you're fishing, you know. Sometimes I think for the harder syndicates and that, I think blending in is far better, you know. I've even done it with mixes. So had a really successful year on one of my syndicates where I was turning up, going around baiting a couple of spots and then go and sit and have a cup of tea with people and then go back and see if there was a fish on it and then maybe fish for them that way, you know, rather than, again, putting your rods out and concentrating on that spot and not knowing what was going on at the other end of the lake. If you've got 2 or 3 spots going and you could watch it, and what I realised there was when I was catching fish off those spots or watching the fish on them, things like corn and stuff like that in the mix was a no-no, you know. What I was doing in the end was I had like a hemp, different grades of pellet, chopped boilies that were darker boilies, and then the spots were different colours. So I'd go round to the spots and I'd like, that's a bit more hemp and that's a bit more bigger pellet. Right, and I was trying to get the spots to mix in. The more blended I could make the spot, there was a lot of wildlife there as well, so that helped with that.
Interesting.
So I was trying to make the texture of the mix for the spots to blend in. The better I could get that bait to blend in,
Really?
the more they'd feed on it. Yeah, because they didn't like it.
I didn't. I've noticed with sweet corn and stuff. It's I thought like last year actually that fishing sweet corn in any sort of quantity over shallow water, they just didn't seem to get on it.
No, you'd be better off with like a single grain or something like that. I've had that before. Yeah.
Tell us your Christmas Day story.
I read there's a book called Fishing and the Meaning of Life by Jeremy Paxman. Actually, he's quite into his fishing, and basically it's a collation of stories. It's got Richard Walker catching Clarissa and that in there. There's a few things in there, but there's a chapter, a few pages on a guy that goes chub fishing on Christmas morning, and I found it really fascinating. The read in this context is a little bit different with this COVID thing, because we've learnt to not have planes and that morning drone and everything, but at the time that was relentless, and he was talking about that in his story, about that he had the river to himself and there was nobody there, and the silence because everybody was in bed, and I found it got under my skin. I was thinking I want to do this. I want to catch fish on Christmas Day. So with my partner I'm with at the second, she was quite into fishing as before the kids and that anyway, so we done various trips. Two that really stand out in France. One of them, there was like not accommodation, it was more like a sort of old Second World War hangar sort of thing, and they'd put a log burner and that in there, and it was so cold outside, and we were catching the odd fish but nothing on Christmas Day, but it's so cold outside. They had this seasoned oak log, He was showing us, going like, I've spent weeks chopping this and that, do what you want. When he come at the end of the week to get the keys and that, we'd nearly done this whole log pile, It's like winter stories.
What have you done?
Yeah, because it was like a space about as big as this. Yeah. So it's hard to heat up. And we had our bed chairs in there, but we had it so hot, we're like walking around in our pants. Do you get what I mean? It was like it's all snowing outside. But we've done a few funny things where we got a branch and put a bit of tinsel on it and like little presents and stuff. Really made, Christmas of it. But there was one after that. It's a bit weird, the continent sometimes, because we don't realise when we're in the UK, we're getting the mild southwesterly wind from the Gulf Stream, but also the sea around us is keeping us warm. Because several times now when I've gone over there in the winter, you leave the UK that's green and 10 degrees, you literally get to Calais and it's white. It's just so cold because the continent is not getting that. There's not surrounded by so much sea. It's not getting the Gulf Stream, So we've driven 5 or 6 hours down, got to the lake, and I'm not joking, it must have been 4 inches thick with ice, So I'm there for a week in a little cabin thing with my girlfriend for a week. So I find an old punt in the corner, which I slide up on the grass. You can't get it around the lake. And then I find a great big pickaxe that's got like a spade end on one side and a sharp point on the other. And for the next 2 or 3 days, I'm just trying to smash a sliver into the ice. Got maggots and that with me for that trip. But anyway, I managed to fish on Christmas Day in this little slice. It was that cold when I'm going out on this punt. When I'm trying to come back, it's freezing behind me. It's that bad. So just wanted to fish on Christmas Day on this thing. Didn't even think I was going to catch. And we're sitting there all day, and my missus, literally there's a sliver of ice, and then there's a pile of ice next to me, and then there's almost like a permafrost in the ground. She's sitting there reading her book, and a few times during the day she was saying, "My feet are cold," So I was doing that kind of army thing where they take the boot off and put it underneath your armpit, rubbing her feet. And she was like, "No, like my feet are really cold," and it kind of went on and on. Anyway, the trip passed, and we got back home. And it was probably about 2 weeks after we had been there, all of a sudden it started appearing on her toes and on the outside of the thing. Started going dark, didn't it?
Oh dear.
She got frostbite.
No.
Yeah.
Nasty.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It was like, Merry Christmas.
I bet she was best pleased.
Yeah. So this like epic. I'd caught fish on some of these trips, but none of it was on Christmas Day. So then we had another trip planned. This was to go to Waveney Valley Lakes, which I'd fished a lot as a kid and that, and there's a lot of history around it with the big fish and everything. So it it was the day before Christmas Eve we were going, and on the forecast it's like -5 and snowing, and I was just so excited. I had a 4-wheel drive at the time as well, and I was like, let's go, I want to catch a fish in the snow and that. And she's like, after the frostbite thing, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, you're going on your own. Yeah.
So we go, and it's really snowing hard, and it's really cold for it. I was surprised it was snowing as hard as it was for how cold it was when we got there. I put the rods out. Within about half an hour, I had the biggest mirror out the lake. It just completely threw me. I didn't even think it was my rod. There was nobody else there, but I just was like beep 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 beep. It happened, luck more than anything else. So I had this really nice 32 pounder on the bank in all the snow. So I've got my snow shot and everything else. Even the main bailiff come round. He was like, well, that didn't take you long, did it? I was like, hey. But again, it's not the Christmas Day thing. So that night, the lake plummeted hard, because like I said, daytime was -5. It must have gone down to 8, 10, maybe 12. Got up in the morning on Christmas Eve, and the lake is frozen solid. So I'm like, not again, I had 10 kilos of boilies with me. So what I'd done was, there's loads of ducks, because a lot of the cabins and that there, people feed the ducks, and they're not feeding them because they're not there. So I thought, what I'll do is I'll use 9 kilos of the boiler, I'll keep a kilo back, and I'll just keep feeding them, and I'll like create a cut with the ducks rather than trying to do anything else. So I'd done that. They're going mad. I'm like sprinkling them so they're diving, and I spent all of Christmas Eve creating this cut. So managed to get the rod out and everything just before dark. Didn't catch anything. So what happened on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, it started to warm up a little bit. Not enough for the lake to defrost, but for it to creak a little bit, and there was a little bit of wind got up. So on Christmas Day itself, what had happened was the cut that I'd created when I got up in the morning had closed. So because I was down one end of the lake, the whole of the lake had shifted and closed my gap up, So I just stood there. I'd spent the whole day. I chased these things around in different countries for years. It's like my opportunity's gone. So I thought, right, I'm not having that. There's got to be a way out of this. So I go round to the other bank. I've got, great animalistic gear, Nash bullet braid. I think it's like £25 or something on a reel. So what I've done is I've cast the lead, like 4-ounce dumpy, into the middle of the lake, into the ice. And then I've put it round my arm, and all the ducks are thinking I'm going to feed them, so they've all come up. There's 50 ducks on the ice as well, and I've started to. When I was standing there, I was thinking, this is not going to move, You're just being silly, And then all of a sudden, I could hear a few branches like clicking around the margin. I was thinking, I wonder whether it is, And I was so slow with my movement. This was going on for minutes, And then all of a sudden, I started getting momentum. And all these ducks like, wee. So I'm like, no, I'm pulling it. And then all of a sudden I realised my gap's opened back up, and I've got to get my rods out. So I've tied it around a tree. And as I'm running along this bank, I can hear the wind starting to pick up. And that's what's caused the problem in the first place. So I'm running like mad, and I got round there. Lucky my rods are ready to go, and they just went out. I think there was only 2 in the gap anyway. So 2 rods went out, and then I just heard the line just go, and then it just closed the gap back up. But I knew that my rods were underneath it, so I was happy.
Right. Wow.
And,
that's pretty mental.
And then we had always had an agreement that I could always fish till 4 o'clock on Christmas Day. That was always the agreement, because otherwise, we would have a party in the evening. I'd done the fishing bit if I caught or I didn't catch, and obviously I hadn't caught on Christmases before. And I can remember literally, 3:30, this, that and the other, and I can remember with my phone just going, that's it then. There's another year done. Started pulling up, and just literally just on dark, and I had a 17-pound mirror from under the ice. Well, after doing all.
Did you land it all right?
Yeah,
it was fine.
Yeah, a little bit where the ducks had been coming in and that, and it was actually, the more the evening went on, it was 4 and out. Not enough to cast a rod out, but it was the bits that I'd moved. Yeah, I got that in. And then in the end, actually, even before Christmas jumpers become really popular, I got a real Christmas jumper on. I've got a turkey hat on, and I've got this 17-pounder. Just a real cheesy grin, because all of them trips and all of that frostbite, and you get what I mean.
It was
all
worth
of the thing,
it.
yeah, and just that thing of, and he was right, that guy. about this kind of like owning it, that those lakes were mine. You know, the landscape was mine. When I was up early in the morning, put my rods out, and the whole world was asleep, because they'd had a busy night the night before. There's no traffic. I had some real solitude where it was mine, and that was what I wanted, you know.
Well, you did own it. I mean, that's extreme. You controlled the lake by getting to the ice.
I really didn't think it was going to go. It did, you know, it was shocking. It moved, you know, I must have moved 2 acres of ice. With all the ducks were on it like that. Yeah, let's go.
That's great. Actually, you said as well, didn't you, with like a frozen lake, that you've heard carp showing underneath the ice as well.
Carp. I think maybe some plumbers listen to this to understand it. There's a lot of underground heating that goes on where people put the pipes into their garden and then it feeds the heating system, because the ground, you know, under a certain depth is warm, you know, created from the earth itself. So I've noticed, because I fish right the way through, and if I can get the rods underneath the ice, I've noticed a few times that when it's frozen, like trying to get the rods under there, I was confident I was going to get a run. A lot of people, they wake up in the morning, their rods are underneath the ice, and they're like, oh, that's it, it's done. But what is actually happening, because the lake has got a lid on it, is the temperature's rising, because the ground underneath the lake is warmer than the outside temperature or the lake, and it's just warming it up. It's the terrestrial environment that's making it go cold.
It's a greenhouse sort of effect, isn't it?
You get any outside swimming pool, they put a cover on it at night to hold the heating, don't they? They do that kind of thing to trap it, and then all of a sudden it's got a blanket on. I've caught loads of fish from underneath the ice. If I can get my rods back out, that becomes the problem. Is if you have a run and then it's in, then that rod's done, you know. But yeah, several times now, because I've sat there in them conditions and not gone home, I've just heard a donk, just like, you know, almost like the whole lake's vibrating, and thought that fish there just tried to roll, just gone, you know,
itself.
It's gone donk. Yeah.
They don't realise that they've got a lid on top of them.
No, just tried to roll at that point.
It's bad luck, wasn't it?
See, a lot of anglers, that convection thing, but a lot of anglers will go to the lake because it's defrosting on a big wind and that. But sometimes you think about it, if you took a kid's slushy, do you get what I mean? And then that's kind of, even when that slush has started to go down, that drink is really cold, isn't it? It's kind of like you're pushing all of that ice into the water. I know that they do get caught around that period, but if you imagine it when it's flat, calm,
you'd rather when it's settled and you
just can't get your rods back in. That's the only problem.
That is the small drawback.
Yeah,
Pete, it's been a fascinating podcast. It really has.
I really, this is a treat. When you first started them, I wanted to come on. I wanted to just be myself. And
well, I'm bloody glad we got you on the podcast.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. You'd definitely be back, mate. 100%.
Well, we haven't even gone through a quarter of what I wanted to go through. So I'd like that sometime in the future. But I have had a really great time, and thank you.
No, we have as well. Thanks very much for a spectacular gift as well. I need to listen to this back now and just listen back to some of the stuff you've been saying as well, because it's been a different show, but it's been a really good, insightful one as well. So do you think you said before you come on this that you wanted everyone to see the true Pete Castle? Do you think you've delivered? I
hope so. I just wanted to be myself. Yeah, I felt quite relaxed. You know, I don't want to be too. I like all aspects of carp fishing, I really do, and I hope that a lot of people respect that as well. We're very quick to criticise, you know, oh, he caught it on that and he didn't do this. And I just think that the more accepting we get in there, that some people don't want to go to hard lakes in France and fish for a week. They want to go to a Runswater. They enjoy that. Other people turn up to a lake, don't they, and they got their cans of beer and their barbecue to fish with their friends. Different people get different things out of carp fishing, and that changes. For me, sometimes I just want to go and I want to read my book. If I catch a carp, I don't really care. Other times I'm in proper animalistic mode, you know, I'm like really, really switched on and hear and see everything, really tuned into it. And I love that buzz, you know, and I think that's...
Yeah, there are multiple opportunities with going fishing, aren't there?
Definitely.
It depends how you want to use your time on, you know, some people tend to want to go through the same process over and over again, and other people mix it up. And
I do. I want to meet as many different people from as many different places, from as many different backgrounds. I'm into that. I want to understand, you know, the different perspectives. I couldn't think of anything better than being on a Belgian canal and the hospitality of one of my friends that I haven't seen for 2 years bringing me a load of pastries or something, and they're bringing it as a gift of, like, I don't know, friendship and camaraderie and all of that. I couldn't think of anything better in life, really, you know. And to then, I've done that, set up several trips here for them. They think that's amazing. You get the guys from the Benelux that are fishing in the UK. You know, several times now they've been on trips that I've organised and I've caught UK 40s and that. They're just like that. It's a meltdown from it. The whole history of it has been amazing.
Yeah.
You know? So that's really nice. That's what I ultimately... I think you go back to the basics of any fishing thing of you can walk up to someone, you could be a complete stranger now fishing, I go, you caught anything, mate? And you can make a friendship out of that.
Absolutely.
That can last a lifetime, you know.
Yeah.
That's very special. We're very lucky to have that, you know.
Yeah, we should take advantage of it, you know, and no. It's been great. It hasn't been dark, has it, Tobe?
No, absolutely not.
It's been
I didn't
full
want to
of
get too dark. Good.
No, maybe next time we'll go darker.
Yeah, maybe.
You never know, do you? No.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.